Second. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the March 20th, 2025 Barnstable Town Council meeting. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make your presence known. Seeing no one. This meeting is being televised live via Xfinity Channel 8, Channel 1070, and High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live stream feed on the town website. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Councilors Bloom.
Here.
Burdick.
Present.
Clark.
Here.
Crow.
Here.
Levesque.
Here.
Ludke.
Here.
Mendes.
Here.
Neary. Penn. Schnapp. Starr.
Here.
Tamish.
Present.
Turkelson.
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay, just for the record, Councilor Bloom and Councilor Starr are attending via Zoom, which means that all votes will be roll call votes tonight. Okay, I'm informed that Councilor Penn, I don't see her on there, but she is present?
I'm sorry, she hasn't moved over yet. I apologize.
Okay. Okay, apparently they're in the process of moving her over from the waiting room. Okay. Madam Clerk, did you want to note that Councilor Penn is present? Thank you. Okay. Councilor Letke, are you introducing?
Thank you, President Tamish. Please remain seated while I read a little bit about our veteran this evening. Paul Niedzwiecki enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in December 1983. He was sent to Parris Island, South Carolina for basic training, where he graduated Honor Man. Paul then reported to basic infantry training at Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and upon completion, he received orders to report to the 2nd Marine Force Recon Battalion at Onslow Beach, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Paul received a secondary military occupational specialty as a primary marksmanship instructor and was selected to attend Scout Sniper School at Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia. Paul was deployed 3 times to Europe, Central America, and the Gulf of Arabia, served on 3 different deployments, and left his service with an honorable discharge. Let's welcome Paul Niedzwiecki.
Okay, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And upon the completion of the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll be doing a moment of silence, so if you'd remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight, moments of silence. Please keep the family of Karen Nober and her family in your thoughts as her husband, Joe, passed away suddenly yesterday, last night, I believe it was. So if we could have a moment of silence for Karen and her family and all those that are near and dear to you. Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Please make sure you sign in with your name and village for public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Please keep your comments brief and to the point. Written comments are always welcome at council@town.barnstable.ma.us and will be distributed to the entire council. Mr. Niedzwiecki, you have the floor.
Is your microphone on?
There we go. Paul Niedzwiecki, Hyannis. And I just wanted to sort of mention briefly, once upon a time, I was the assistant town manager here. And we did a lot of work around the harbor front, around the waterfront, that walkway to the sea, which when I got here was the walkway to the intersection. You know, but we did a lot of work over there with the Harbor Your Arts, Bismore Park, extending that walkway, really because it's so important to have a harbor that's a working harbor and one that it has public access associated with it. I mean, other than Woods Hole, you can look around the Cape, and a lot of these beautiful harbors are really surrounded by residential development exclusively. And I think it may come up later, but keeping Hyannis Harbor a working harbor is supremely important. It's important not just for the town, but for the region, and preserving that public access going forward is really a legacy. And so I would encourage the council to do whatever it needs to do and whatever it can do to look at the feasibility of buying any property down there for the purpose of having it remain a working harbor and open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to acknowledge the emails and letters that we have received. I think it's important for those that do send us correspondence that they know that it's been received and distributed to the entire council. So I'd like to thank Chris Kuhn, who chimed in on zoning and residential zones, and also on 201 Main Street, the traffic concerns and building concerns that he had there. Satchel Douglas, supporting the ADU updates. Sandy Jones, a discussion of the Jenkins Bog and some issues that are going on there in Centerville. Bruce Cole, in support of 2023-046, which you're going to hear about a little bit later. David Ellis and the work that he's doing at the police station. Irene Almer, Amy Fregault, Betsy Young, and Greg Milne, all in support of the Pleasant Street property due diligence article that we're going to be doing tonight. And then James Morphy, Richard Shea, Javier and Pamela Kuong, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Nick and Jan Colello, Matthew Border, Haley McDonald, all in support of the Wiano Beach restrictions. Steve Waller, in support of the stretch code and green communities. And we also received some correspondence regarding an issue with the Centerville Library. If anyone was going to address that tonight to the council, I just want them to be aware that the Centerville Library is not a Town of Barnstable organization. It is a private organization, and we cannot become involved in that. That would be between the employee and her employer and whatever action she deems appropriate that she may take. So, having said that, do we have anyone for public comment? If you could just, again, announce your name and village and make sure you sign in, please.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Greta Nelson. I'm a resident of West Barnstable. In light of the Green Communities Workshop that is going on this evening, I am here to voice my support in the adoption of the stretch code and finally qualifying for the Massachusetts Green Communities designation in Barnstable, the last town on the Cape to do so. I spoke at public comment in 2021 as a college student in favor of Barnstable becoming a green community, and in the last 4 years have worked in the Cape Cod environmental sector from land conservation to oyster farming. I'm now a teacher at Sturgis Charter Public School just down the road, teaching a course called Environmental Systems and Societies. Also, in the last 4 years, the town has lost out on almost $1 million in not passing the stretch code in 2021. That money could have been used for updating our schools and municipal buildings to be more energy efficient and have better air quality. This would both directly and indirectly benefit public health and fight oncoming climate change. With this new opportunity and information provided to you tonight through the workshop, I urge you all to pass the stretch code for our town and start the hard work of retrofitting our municipal buildings and schools with the money that we will qualify for. The immediacy of climate change calls for swift and decisive action, and we must prioritize the planet over profit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Good evening. My name is Ruth Dillingham. I'm Precinct 13, Hyannis. I am here to speak in opposition to the appropriation for the due diligence on the property on Pleasant Street. I ask as an initial, albeit rhetorical question, to what purpose? Is the town planning to get into the restaurant business? I doubt that that is a municipal undertaking of the first rank. I think the money could be far better spent on much more municipal-oriented purposes, such as our schools and the potential of underfunding from the state on the sewer project, just to name two that have been in the public domain recently. If, in fact, the town is considering undertaking this due diligence with an eye towards any other use for the property on which Baxter's Boathouse Club now sits, I urge you to think about the impact that losing yet another place of public accommodation where those who do not own waterfront properties can go and sit and enjoy a view of the waterfront, of which we have, by my count, maybe 2 or 3, even water view on the south side of this town. And I urge you to keep the funds for some other more municipal-oriented purpose and to let us continue to enjoy, as citizens of the town, the occasional opportunity to sit and look at the water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. Joanne O'Connor from the Centerville Civic Association. Just giving you a little update on what's been happening with us. I missed you in February, so I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of that meeting. We had Kelly Colopy and Tyler Gilman from the DPW giving or taking questions and giving information on the sewer project as it started in the southern part and the northern part of Centerville. They did a great job. Kelly is so well-versed in all of this arena, and Tyler filled in the blanks that Kelly didn't. So she's planning to come back in April 14th. I think they both are actually, for an update. Not much has started on the south side yet, but some has started in the area of Shoot Flying Hill Road, so we'll be interested to hear what happens there. We're also happy to hear that the playground renovation is to be started in late March. Mostly the parking lot area, I believe, is supposed to be worked on in the beginning, and we'll see what happens with that. And then in February, we had the distinct honor and pleasure of being at the redemption shed at the Barnstable dump, where we collected cans and bottles to support our scholarship fund. And your town council president and his lovely wife were there a couple times, actually, spending time with us. We raised $3,720 and also $1,200 from private donations. So we'll be funding 5 scholarships for college-bound and technical school-bound students. Applications, by the way, will be accepted until 4:15. And if anybody's wondering how to get in touch with us, our email is info@centervillecivic@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to get you an application if you're interested. And back to the redemption shed, we had many volunteers. I think there were over 30 people who came to help, and it was an oddly fun thing to do. Don't ask me why. So in March, we had a discussion on traffic safety following the violent car accident on 139 Old Stage Road in Centerville, where a couple's home was deemed inhabitable after being struck. The homeowners were about to go to bed that night, but for the grace of God, they weren't in the room when the car came through. So this is a subject that is not just Centerville, it is townwide, it's Cape-wide. We really need to make some pushes on this. And I know that changes to the speed limit have been raised as where we may do it appropriately. And we're just hoping that maybe we can get an update on what is being done to protect everybody in the town.
Ms. O'Connor, wrap it up, please.
Oh, I will, thank you. So my last thing, I guess that was the most important thing that I had to say. I'll give you the rest of it next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I am a local resident who lives on Pleasant Street. Probably the last time I was here around 2016 when Pleasant Street was declared as Sea Captain's Row, the most endangered mass resource in Massachusetts, one of 7. The reason being it is one of the most historical locales that tells the story of Hyannis. It tells the story of Cape Cod. It tells the story of New England. From the founding, which was at the bottom of the street, actually where Baxter's is, into the harbor, was the first settlement by an oyster farmer who was persecuted because he was a Quaker. And the street actually started out as religious freedom because the Indian Llanos Hyannis gets his name, gave him the land to have an oyster farm. And the father of Hyannis is at the other end of Pleasant Street. And he actually, at 16, brought food during the British barricade of the harbor, and then built the community. Alexander Baxter, he started churches, schools. What happened after the recognition, what happened one day when I read that it was known as Sea Captain's Row, I did the research and found out each one of those buildings, 11 and 14 of the properties were sea captains' homes that told stories that were unimaginable, that were would make someone proud because they went all over the world. Our sea captain, where I live, went to 7 seas in 50 years, brought food to the Irish in the potato famine. It's the only house that remains that is original. The original horse's stable, the residence of Captain Crowell, who sailed 7 seas in 50 years. And the hardship that I found, which, I was so excited when I found out these homes were still standing. And when we had no one to actually come to their rescue, and they were now demolished. And we have now a housing development. So we have mixed usage. There were arguments for housing, the need for housing, but this would have been one of the most remarkable stories that would have been still surviving, and it's gone. So we can't go back. We have to go forward. In going forward, I can say that our house is endangered because we're the last one standing. We've had no support from anywhere about what to do, except we've tried to preserve it. I'm going on 80. My wife is 74. And it's very difficult to preserve something. But we are preservationists. We've kept the house up. We are the #1 in the World Atlas to visit in Hyannis. We didn't put that there. I don't know how it got there. We're also on the route of Pokemon people to stop in front of our house. And when people go to visit the museum, I have students coming from all over the world. I used to be a school teacher, and I used to have bikes available for students, and they would come and visit the museum, and they were inspired, and they talked about they never saw anything. I have statements in the log that, in fact, the former director of the Maritime Museum said he wished he could have what the statements are that are in my guest book. The bottom line is this. What's happened to Pleasant Street now, I feel, is we have almost lost, talk about, I could almost say from what has Hyannis become but a tale of tears to me, because I've
Sir,
almost
can you
wept.
wrap it up, please?
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So the bottom line is this. Where are we going in the future? I think if you want to bring back the story of sea captains, the story of Hyannis, maybe if you're going to build a dock there, why not put a ship that is a wooden ship that represents these heroic sea captains that lived there, that brought the story of Hyannis alive, that people could go to and be inspired. Tell me one other place in Hyannis that people are inspired. From the people that have visited me, there's not many places left. So I'm only looking for some kind of support to keep some kind of preservation of this history, some kind of preservation of the street. The final statement I'd like to make. I have semi-trailer trucks coming down this street. It's a route from the ferry up to Main Street. They could have made it two ways, maybe in South Street, but the bottom line is they rumble. The roads have not been repaired since they did the development. There are 7 bumps across from putting the water from one side of the street to the other street. Every semi-trailer truck every hour comes by, we're talking major sound. And so you've got a resident that you approved of to have people live there. I already know people that have moved out because they're right on the street and these semi-trailer trucks come down there. So my only statement is this. Before you put money into doing something like that, can you please try to preserve Pleasant Street before you go and tear something down that's one of the areas where people still come to visit, to come and have a view of the water. And my other point is I had a boat. I couldn't even afford to dock it in the harbor. I wouldn't know if I would ever be able to dock it in the harbor because the cost is so expensive. The waiting list is so long. And I love Hyannis. I love the ocean. I love, I was inspired by John Kennedy when I went to college, and I started
Time is up, sir.
company called the Peace Corps, PAX Corps for travel of foreign students. I took them around the world. The bottom line is, it's in your hands. I hope you make the right decisions about things. And I also have all information telling the story of Sea Captain's Row. I have a website. I have booklets of it. I also gave that and embarked that to the people of the town council in 2016. So I wish everyone to make the
Thank you,
correct
sir.
decision.
Thank you for your
Thank
information.
you very much. Dominic Alessandro.
Good evening, Town Council, President Tamish, all councilors. My name is Suzanne Conley, and I'm from Osterville. And I would just like to speak in support of item 2025-140 that you'll be voting on tonight. And that's placing a portion of Wiano Avenue, the town known as the Town Landing, but known colloquially by the Oster villagers as Baby Beach, under the protection of Article 97. This is especially important because in its filings with the federal and state governments, Avangrid cited that very location as an alternate location for cable installation. It's the inappropriateness of that location should not even be in doubt. But what I want to say tonight is this. We all live here because we love living near the ocean. I believe truly, and I hope this passes this evening, where there are a number of us here very anxious to see the outcome of this vote, and I hope it passes this evening. But there are many beaches, all the way from Cotuit to Centerville to Hyannisport, that do not have this protection. There are many locations, boatways, access to the water. These are public lands, and that is the purpose of Article 97, an amendment to our state's constitution that insists that we preserve public lands, not use them for business that they were not intended for when acquired by the town. And so, I plead with you to think about putting forth an even broader resolution to protect all of the water access in Barnstable owned by the town, to protect it under Article 97. I will tell you, following closely as I have, this proposal to change what is now a policy of, for Article 97 to CMR regulations, removes the 2/3 vote that the current policy requires of you. However, should any of these issues come up, another multi-billion-dollar corporation come along and say, we want your public lands, you still will have something to say. So it's not moot, it's not unimportant, and we do turn to you as the people and the taxpayers of this beautiful town of ours and say, please help us protect access to the water and all of the different uses we all enjoy so much. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Moran, just very quickly, you certainly have the opportunity to speak, but I just wanted you to be aware that the rules of the town council that particular article is going to be postponed due to the death of Karen's husband and her inability to be here.
Okay, so the TCR is going to be postponed? Do you
Yes.
have a new date yet, or are you going to decide?
We're trying to figure that out,
Oh,
exactly
let's
what
wait
day.
till then.
But you're more than welcome to speak on it, but I just wanted you to be aware of that before.
Thank you. I want to tie it in with the time and search. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Any other public comment? Mr. Hanson?
Don't have a pen. Good evening, President Tamish and council members. Peter Hansen, Osterville resident and member of the Save Greater Dulces Beach Committee. Suzanne Connolly said a lot of what summed up our concerns from the Dulces Beach Committee. I would like to briefly say that the small beach at the end of Wayano Ave has been a jewel to the residents of Osterville since the late 1800s. It is used daily in season by the locals to swim, fish, snorkel, sunbathe, bird watch, and to take in the beautiful vistas that look out to Nantucket Sound. Excuse me. If you're not familiar with this beach, you should take time to visit and take in the views and sounds. This beach should be preserved forever so that the future generations can enjoy all the great amenities that it offers. I'd like to thank John Crow and others for their efforts in getting this in front of the Town Council for discussion and a vote tonight. I am optimistic that the Council will rule in favor to designate the beach at Wayano Landings as an Article 97 property. Thank you for listening and bringing closure to this very important item. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none in the room. Lynn, do we have public comment on Zoom?
We do.
All right. Will, are they ready to go, Lynn?
They are here.
Okay, we're going to do this person now calling you.
On Zoom, we have Lisa Nagel. Lisa, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Lisa Nagel from Katuitt, and I'm just wanting to comment and support. I was really pleased to see that you're going to be workshopping on the possibility of a green community. I think Greta, who spoke earlier, said pretty much what I wanted to say, and that there's many funds that we're losing out on that could go towards projects and things that are really important to our town. And so I really urge the councilors to consider this as a good option. And I hope your workshop on this topic is productive and moves forward. And that's all I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
There's no one else on Zoom.
Yeah, my name's Ken Barron from Centerville, almost a lifelong resident of Cape Cod. I just want to make it quick. I totally support what Suzanne said on the Article 97 for all of Cape Cod. I live in Centerville, and I use the beaches in Osterville. So it's not just for Osterville people, it's for everybody on Cape Cod. Okay, so please consider preserving that. That's it.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Mr. Carroll. Oh, I'm sorry. Lynn, do we have someone? Oh, okay. Mr. Carroll.
Good evening, councilors. I just want to make sure when the item on the appropriation on the agenda comes up, there'll be public comment allowed at that point?
Which appropriation?
During the appropriation for the money for the due diligence on Pleasant Street?
Yeah, that's a public hearing.
So
Yes,
that'll
it's a
allow
public
comment
hearing.
then?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Kuhn. I don't know, you sent us 2 letters. I'm not sure if you've fulfilled your quota
I might
here.
be overdoing my welcome.
All right.
They were kind of lengthy, too, I think. It's Chris Kuhn, Precinct 4 in Centerville. I wanted to just give a little background for a lot of people that aren't aware of it. I can remember as a young man working at the Hyannis Harborview Motel on Ocean Street, and across the street in Bismore Park, we had this is back in the 1970s, we had a lot of commercial fishing boats there. We had a decent fleet. And I used to see lots of tourists going down there, getting photographs and, just watching the fishermen do their work and offloading fish and loading ice, whatever, all of it. It was very vibrant. And I'm not sure exactly what happened, but the town changed, maybe they changed the fees, or I know there was a restriction on boat length that was instituted at one point. But a lot of the boats left. Now we only have a small handful. It would be nice if we had a real good, vibrant commercial fishery there. I don't like the idea of having our harbor turn into housing. I don't think that's really anybody's plan, although it might be a consequence. So that's something I would be concerned with. I don't know how the mechanism would be for the town to acquire the Baxter property and continue it to be for public use and enjoyment. I'm sure the lawyers could figure that out. But the other issue that and the email I sent you folks, the traffic all around that whole east end of Hyannis is, as we know, it's going to get worse, particularly once the apartments at the Cascade are built and the wind project is done. It's going to that traffic's going to severely impact the shuttle service for the Steamship Authority, trying to get people from off-site parking lots down to catch boats. The boats wait for no one, so, and it's going to be, there's going to be a big problem with that. And Highline is going to run into the same issue because they've got off-site lots that they have to service. So we're cramming too many cars into too small a space, but that's about it. So,
thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening, and I want to also just thank all of you guys for everything you do. You guys put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I'm certainly one that appreciates your efforts. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment?
Well, since everyone is talking, I might as well.
Go ahead.
I'm a lifelong resident of the West End.
Okay, could you
Okay.
give us your name and village and
My
sign
name
in,
is
please?
Elizabeth Derry.
And sign in,
I'm the
please?
one with the car with all the signs. The green one that Julian C. was complaining about. In any event, you guys work for the liberal elite, unfortunately, except for maybe two of you. And we need to cut that out. We're destroying our home. Look at these buildings. Okay, come to my yard. They did it to me. They took a two-car garage and turned it into a 3-story condominium on my property line, because I'm on the edge of the business district. Come to 14 Potter Ave. That's what's going to happen to the whole town, except for we're talking about 4 stories, 5 stories. Now that workup they did for the old 7-Eleven, it's 4 stories. That's for the waterfront, 4 stories. In town, 2, maybe 3, because we've got single-family homes. I can't use my outdoor shower. The 3rd floor of the condominium can see me naked from the top. Come over, 14 Potter Ave. I know your son. And we're counting on you, Craig, because you're one of the few sane ones on this council.
Hope he's not the one peeking.
Everybody else is in the yacht club. Now, I know you guys have a great life serving the public, But you don't serve the public, you serve the top 1% elite. And that's what you can see in that workup for that building on North Street. The two skyscrapers in the back are Stewie Bornstein's two skyscrapers and his buddies on the harbor. They actually put the skyscrapers in the picture just to give us a hint about what's coming. And what we're going to end up with is a ghetto, because they tried this in UK. It's called a 10-minute city, where you cram all the poor people in the middle. And what they have ended up with is race wars. It's cheap labor out of control that causes chaos among the people. And we're what it's about, not you, us. And you're destroying our quality of life. And you're doing it acting like you care. But all your voting over the last year, you don't care. You go with them. That's why I have a condominium in my backyard. You guys approved it. Art Turnbull built it. He's a millionaire in Nantucket.
Excuse me, miss, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably our last chance.
Okay. Any further public comment? Seeing none. Council response to public comment. Do we have any comment on my right? Councilor Ledke.
Thank you, President Tamish. Let me group a few folks together. Very passionate comments. Suzanne, Paul, Dominic, Greta, Lisa, Chris. I think you all spoke about a similar thing from a slightly different perspective, that being the importance of people engaging in our waterfront in different ways. You know, Paul started us off talking about the importance of the working harbor. Chris touched on that. You know, Chris works at the parking lot for the Steamship Authority. He really knows this stuff. And the rest of you talked about, you know, we had Greta and Lisa talking about the green communities. It's all part of the same thing. It's having respect for our history. Dominic, my goodness, I hope you bring your passion forward, because you've got an amazing passion for the history. And I think we do have a deficit of that. And thank you for your comments on that. And Elizabeth, my goodness, I've seen your house. Your house was featured by...
I fixed all the signs.
Did you fix them all? Okay. It was also not only by Senator Sear, but by the contractor that came to do our two-way street study. Yeah. So, but again, your passion is well taken. And it's very difficult. I think you give an example of when the taller buildings meet the more modest buildings. How do you do that transition? No, a transition between uses is really an important planning tool. So,
Ms. Derry?
yeah.
Ms. Derry, you're out of order, please.
No, I'm sorry. It's not a back and forth. Okay, I'm just commenting that you bring up a good point that we should think about as we do planning. But terrific. There'll be maybe more comments as we consider the Baxters. But I certainly appreciate the passion and how everybody wants to engage with what we have here, which is incredibly special. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on my left? Seeing none. Councilor Penn.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to thank the Hyannis Civic Association for their support for the 177 and Greater Pleasant Street due diligence project. I also want to thank Mr. Niedzwiecki for his support and vision in the past and now. Chris Kuhn, you had some great words. Quote unquote, it was very vibrant, talking about the 70s commercial fishing fleet off of what's now Bismore Park. That is exactly the point of why we need to do diligence on these properties on Pleasant Street, is to keep the inner harbor very vibrant and to recreate that. To Dominic from Pleasant Street, given the chance, it will be enhanced and make a positive impact. on the Inner Harbor. So thank you all for your support. And this has nothing to do with the town being in the restaurant business. We should not even talk about this as Baxter's property. We should talk about this as Pleasant Street, because that's what it is. There's 3 lots on Pleasant Street that adjoin and are adjacent to a current lot that is already owned by the town. And what we can do with this, if you have the vision, is going to be remarkable for the commercial fishing fleet and for economic development in Inner Hyannis. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Mr. Bornstein, public comment is over.
I thought the meeting was at 7 o'clock. I apologize.
I'm sorry?
Couldn't give me 2 minutes. I'd really appreciate it. Something interesting regarding this. Everybody here would find it very interesting.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, if you're passing something out, could you give them to the clerk, please, and she'll pass them down?
I really appreciate this, and I'm sorry about being late. If I start?
Sure. Yeah.
The town owns a significant piece of property called Kelmis Beach. And it was given to the town in 1946 for the exclusive use of a public playground, recreation center, and everything to do for the town of Barnstable. I just passed out something I've had made probably 10 years ago. Didn't get a lot of traction. This is a 240-unit marina that sits in an area that don't bother Kelmis Beach. In other words, there is some wetland in front of it. The town owns it. And they can have a 240 town-owned marina. And this is really major because this town, being a major player in Hyannis, doesn't have their own marina. Now, this is probably going to cost $30 or $40 million. I will underwrite the whole cost of this with a lease, so it'll cost the town nothing. If you don't want to do it that way, you can bond it, put out an RFP on it. But here is a piece that can service everybody in the town for all the needs you need. And this is very doable. I've had it researched legally. It's legal. It's, again, no cost to the town. No cost to the town. This piece in Bax is a great piece. It'll cost you $35 million by the time you get it up running. And what are you going to get, 25 boats, maybe 30? I know you're big on the fishing fleet, but that went south a long time ago. They're up in Chatham. They're not going to spend $500 for gas round trip to come down here to unload fish. It doesn't work anymore. You'll have a few here and there. But this is something, a long-range plan for the town. It'd really be a shame not to take advantage of this piece. Again, it can be funded with no money from the town whatsoever, or you can bond it, put an RFP on it, but it's very doable. 240-unit marina for the town. Town owns it. Town owns it. They already have the piece of property. There's a piece of property that's probably worth $100 million, okay? But putting a marina on it, just think what you could do with it. And I gave you some plans.
Thank you, Mr. Bornstein. Your time is up.
Okay, I hope you consider it.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we've received the minutes of the March 6th meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or could I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilors Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ledke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Penn?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Tamish?
Yes.
Torkelson?
Yes.
Okay, I skipped the town manager report. The summary report is the town manager's report is available on the town website. Also, it is videotaped and available prior to the meeting, I believe at 5:30. There's several articles here: budget calendar update, discussion of the public lands proposed regulations. The Barnstable Youth Commission Youth Summit was held, and also their job fair was held. Town manager met with the MIT team for kickoff of the Renewable Energy Facility Siting Clinic, and there will be office hours available. There's a link to that on the town website also. And Kelly Colby updated the comprehensive wastewater management plan. Jim Kupfer provided updates on the housing production plan, I believe it was. And we have our capable assistant town manager here tonight. If anyone had any questions on any of that, any members of the council? Seeing none? Councilor Crowe.
Is Assistant Manager Clyburn here?
He's right here.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Andy. Good to see you tonight.
Good evening.
A quick question about the MIT study. I noticed that it has been focused on the New England 2 project. Was that always the way it was going to be? I didn't see that in the previous literature.
As I understand it, that is always the way it's been, sir. I'll be honest with you, I have not been privy to the conversations that Manager Ells has. I know Councilor Turkelson has been involved. I can either find out and report back to you, or if the Councilor wants to perhaps. I hate to defer a question back to the Councilor.
There was a question to the MIT group that they will be, if you make an appointment, they will discuss other things other than just New England Wind 2. So that's not a limitation, but more so the focus. So please don't let that stop you from reaching out.
Yeah, thank you. I just was wondering if it was more of a general thing. I didn't notice that it was that one project, so just was curious. Thank you.
And by the way, I would just like to acknowledge Town Manager Ells on the birth of his second grandson, and he's with his family now.
Some well-deserved time off.
Congratulations to him.
Number 2, Henry. So
yep.
Report he's doing well and mom's doing well as well.
Very good.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Assistant Town Manager Clyburn. I do want to applaud you and the staff for accommodating the public with the local comprehensive plan outreach. It looks like we've got a busy spring with the meetings on April 15th, April 30th, and May 5th, and then a very creative and involved townwide community building, townwide community meeting at the Barnstable High School with live Portuguese and Spanish interpretation and childcare services, including pizza and arts and crafts, on Thursday, May 8th at 6 o'clock at the high school. So congratulations to you and your team for that kind of outreach.
Thank you.
Any further discussion with the Assistant Town Manager? Seeing none. I would like to invite Barry Scheingold, Chair of the Infrastructure and Energy Committee, to come forward along with his group for their presentation on the stretch code potential green communities designation.
All right, so I'm Barry Scheingold. Is it on? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Barry Scheingold, I'm chair of the Infrastructure and Energy Committee. Our committee is sponsoring this workshop. We have 7 speakers. Some of them are here in person, some are remote. It may, given we have so many speakers, it may make sense to have questions at the end, but of course that's up to you. And let me start. And I'll just say, I spent my career in the electric power industry, the last 22 years as a consultant, so that's my background. So what is the Green Communities Program? So this is a program that would provide to our town potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars for municipal energy efficiency and decarbonization projects. Now, this program requires that a municipality satisfy 5 criteria, including having an energy reduction plan and adopting the stretch code. Now, Green Communities designation would advance a 2020 Town Council policy to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions to 0 to the extent feasible. And this would be done in recognition of a climate emergency that's driven by human consumption and land use practices, and that's primarily carbon dioxide emissions from combusting fossil fuel, and that's the major greenhouse gas. So we have some background here. The stretch code was brought before the Town Council in 2021. It didn't pass because there was a tie vote. There was no workshop held at that time. And then going back further in years, it was brought up twice before that, but did not pass as well. Now, Barnstable's the only town on Cape Cod and the islands, for that matter, that has not adopted the stretch code, or a code even more stringent than that, and received Green Communities designation. So we're a bit of an outlier at this point. But why should we consider now the stretch code and Green Communities designation? Well, we've had more experience over the years with the Home Energy Rating System, or HERS, raters, and the use of the performance-based stretch code. We've had experience now with the Department of Energy Resources administering the building codes. We've had changes in state law requiring greenhouse gas reductions and focusing on decarbonization, effectively replacing fossil fuel heating and cooling with electric. And we've had also during this period, we've had commercialization and greater public acceptance of cold climate air source heat pumps. We have mass save incentives that are now focused on, as we heard from the Cape Light Compact Administrator, I think about 6 weeks ago, focusing on decarbonization and heat pumps and other electrical appliances. And because now we're looking at comparing natural gas under the base code to using primarily heat pumps under the stretch code, it changes the net economics. It's different from what it was before. We'll have speakers that will address that. And then lastly, the stretch code was amended effective last month. And we as a committee were looking forward to those potential amendments. And this was a process whereby DOER, Department of Energy Resources, last summer, in response to industry and public feedback, proposed changes to the stretch code, mostly regarding large additions. And large additions were new under the stretch code in 2023. So generally, those changes clarified and narrowed the scope of the rules, so essentially reducing the number of projects that would be subject to the stretch code. It made the performance standards more lenient, and it gave builders and homeowners more flexibility in complying. And I worked with Building Commissioner Florence in submitting comments, or the town of Barnstable submitting comments generally in support of that. So I think this is pretty telling that the Mass Home Builders and Remodelers Association expressed support for the updated stretch code. And this is what the head of governmental affairs for that trade association said, that he wanted to commend the DOER regarding the ongoing efforts to improve the Massachusetts energy codes for their effectiveness, clarity, and practicality. The recent proposed revisions are both welcome and clearly reflective of the numerous concerns expressed by many of the organizations and people who are engaged in the designing and or building of structures regulated by the energy codes, as well as those who are tasked with enforcing the code. And I would say, just in my experience, it's unusual for a trade association of a regulated party to be that positive about regulations. So I'm just going to outline the speakers here. We have Lisa Sullivan from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. She'll be appearing remotely. She'll be talking about the Green Community Program and its requirements. We have Mike Rossi, who's a consultant to DOER, and he'll be talking about the stretch code and the stretch code amendments. We have, he's also will be appearing remotely. We have in person, we have Sean Hogan, our town sustainability manager, and he'll be talking about what the town needs to do for green community designation and the potential benefits to the town. We have with here Chris Mazzola, who's a HERS rater, and I might say he was recommended by 3 different people, so he must be very good at what he does. But he will be talking how builders and owners and HERS raters work together to cost-effectively build to the performance standards, test results, and utilize the mass save incentives. Next, we have Chris Gloninger, who's a climate scientist and meteorologist. He's going to talk about the science behind the town's net zero policy and the Massachusetts greenhouse gas reduction laws. We have Dr. Jane Ward, who will be talking about the health impacts from relating to the stretch code and green communities designation. And both Chris and Jane are members of our committee, and they will be appearing remotely. And then we will have questions. Lastly, I'd like to say that we talked with Brian Florence, the town's building commissioner, in the preparation of this workshop. He's not here tonight, but he told us that he will enforce whatever building code the town council approves. And I want to mention finally that Peter Doyle, who worked for the town for 35 years as a water pollution control supervisor, and then served in our committee for many additional years, including as chair, wanted to bring green communities and the stretch code back to the town council. He expressed this a few months before he died of ALS last year. So aside from the merits of the matter, we are motivated to bring this before you in honor of Peter. So with that, I think next we have Lisa Sullivan.
Can we make that bigger by chance? So it fills the screen, or is that something?
I'm sorry, what? No, okay, got it, okay, I'm sorry, okay. All right, Lisa?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for inviting us here tonight. It's good to be here. It's so sad to hear about Mr. Doyle. He was a great supporter of the Green Communities Program. And I'd like to thank Mr. Scheingold for making this all possible. There are 297 green communities, as you will see by the map. So please turn to the map. I have to tell you, just I'm confessing, I have to have the screen, the presentation up on a separate screen so that I can, and I only have one screen because it's too small for me to read. So just so you know, I will be telling you to page forward. So 297 green communities. We give away $20 million a year in grants to qualifying communities, and these grants fund energy efficiency initiatives and renewable energy and innovative projects. Next slide. We have funded $192 million in grants have been awarded. They've resulted in $29.7 million in savings per year. There's been $44.4 million in utility incentives through Mass Save and utilities. We've had communities complete 1,049 grants, and there's been huge emissions reductions and MMBTUs reductions. And that's been just amazing. We've had a lot of communities enjoy those benefits. Next slide, please. Barnstable is in good company if you were to join our program. And this is just a slide that's showing you what some of your neighbors have received to date. And the highlights are Harwich, who was designated in 2018 and received $449,250 to date. Mashpee's received almost $250,000, and Provincetown, Truro, and Wellfleet are all over $500,000 at this point. And Orleans, a newer green community, they joined in 2017, is still working on. They actually recently got close to closing out their designation grant. We anticipate they'll be closing out and applying for funding soon. Next slide, please. If Barnstable completes green community designation, your first grant or designation grant would be around $220,000. And then after you close that out, you would be able to apply for competitive grants annually for green communities that they're available to anyone who's closed out a grant. So you always have to close out one grant in order to apply for another. Next slide, please. The Green Communities Designation Grant Program allows for up to $250,000 for eligible green communities, and then multi-year decarbonization grants up to $500,000. When communities have received over $1 million in competitive grant funding, we reduce the grant available to about $100,000 in the hopes that all the newer communities who come in will get to avail themselves of the same proceeds. So even though we have 297 green communities, we have it structured so that the newer communities coming in, like hopefully Barnstable, will get their share of the pie. Next slide, please. And quickly to review the qualification criteria, you have to adopt as-of-right siting for renewable or alternative generation, research and development, or manufacturing. And often many communities already have some of these things in place and don't have to do anything at all. You have to have an expedited permitting process, which allows as-of-right siting in your qualifying zone to have applications processed within 365 days. And you have to create an energy reduction plan to reduce energy use by 20% in 5 years. You have to adopt a fuel-efficient vehicle purchase policy and minimize life cycle costs in new construction. A link to all of our guidance documents is available on our website. Next slide, please. So to adopt criteria 5, which we're really here to talk about tonight, is minimizing life cycle costs in new construction. The town council would have to adopt the stretch energy code. It's a general bylaw or an ordinance in your case because you have a city council. And once you adopt it, you adopt all future additions. And code typically is updated. Base building code is updated about every 3 years. And the stretch energy code is updated to be a minor stretch beyond the base building code. Next slide, please. And this is just a little bit of policy background so that you know where we're coming from. The Climate Act was signed in 2021. And with that, Massachusetts decided to achieve net zero emissions in 2050 and authorize the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs to establish emissions limits of no less than 50% for 2030 and no less than 75% for 2040. Next slide, please. And then I have just a couple of slides here that show that in 2020, you can see that heat pumps were more efficient. It was a more efficient way to deliver 1 MMBTU of heat as compared to natural gas. and that we anticipate in 2050, because the grid will continue to get cleaner, that it will be much more efficient. A heat pump will be much more efficient than natural gas. Next slide, please. And then building codes role in reducing emissions, minimizing life cycle costs in new construction. Building code is the primary policy impacting new buildings, and new buildings built after 2023 will result in 27% of all building space by 2050. New buildings are the easiest and the cheapest to make 2050 compliant, and new construction market helps drive cost reductions in building retrofits. In 2030, the Massachusetts legal limit is at least 50% reduction in GHG gases from 1990. Next slide, please. And this is a map that shows the Massachusetts Building Energy Code adoption by municipality. And you can see that 50 cities and towns remain on the base energy code. That's where Barnstable is. And that 253 are on the stretch energy code, and that 48 communities have adopted the specialized energy code, which is another opt-in code that's even more stringent than the stretch energy code. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Michael Rossi, our code specialist.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. So this slide breaks down some of the specific information about how Massachusetts lays out their energy code. So first off, we have the base code, which is based on the National Model Code, the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, with some amendments that are specific to Massachusetts. And as Lisa mentioned, 50 municipalities are still on the base code, including Barnstable, which represent about 9% of the Massachusetts population. So a majority of communities in the state have adopted either the stretch code or the specialized opt-in code. So the stretch code impacts both new construction as well as major additions and alterations, and 253 municipalities currently follow it. And then the specialized code is applicable to new construction only, and 48 communities in the state have followed it. So there are some Massachusetts amendments to the National Model Code that are available in all of these, but just wanted to break down that the way I like to describe the energy code is that the base code's the floor, and the stretch code essentially raises the floor a little bit. So increases the stringency to make it a little bit more energy efficient. And the specialized code makes it even more efficient than the stretch code, essentially. So next slide, please. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail because this is one of the most important pieces of the stretch code is a HERS rating. So HERS refers to Home Energy Rating System. And the way I like to describe it is like similar to like a miles per gallon sticker for a car, but for a house. So what it does is look at different energy features of the home, including features like the insulation used, the window efficiencies, the mechanical equipment used for heating and cooling, hot water heating and ventilation, looking at features like if solar is used in the project, appliances, and really just takes a comprehensive look into all the different features of the home. So the lower the HERS score, the more efficient the design. And so a HERS 100 is essentially equivalent to a new home that was built in 2006. And the lower the score, the more efficient. So essentially a zero energy home would be a HERS 0 or below. And so in 2021, the average HERS score in Massachusetts is a 51. So that's just a little bit of background about what the HERS rating is. And I'm going to talk about it because it really is the basis of the specialized or of the stretch code. And Chris, who's going to be joining us as well, is a HERS rater and can dig into that in a little bit more detail. Next slide, please. So one of the benefits of doing a HERS rating on a project is that it's a performance-based code. So when you look at a performance-based code, what you're really doing and saying there is you're providing third-party verification. So you're making sure that everything used in the home still is applicable and making sure everything is done correctly. So prescriptive codes, which is what the base code includes, doesn't guarantee good installation of materials, air and water tightness, or that the thermal insulation is effective. And so when you have small air gaps in your assembly, it can reduce the insulation R values by 50% or more. So what a HERS rater does is goes to the project and tests the performance of the structure. So making sure everything is designed correctly. Next slide, please. So we mentioned that on February 14th, 2025, there was a stretch code update that actually reduced the stringency in some instances and provided a little bit more flexibility to the building community. So the first update that was made pertains to large additions. So what they did was clarify some of the language used in the code so that fewer projects would be subject to the requirements. And then additionally, made the performance standards more lenient. And what that means is the HERS index you need to achieve for existing buildings using the residential provisions is actually the same as it is for the base code. So the base code and the stretch code on the residential side now have to achieve the same HERS index. And as I said, there are other changes that are made in the code that soften the standards and do allow for a little bit more flexibility. And we're going to give just some examples of what I mean by that shortly. So next slide, please. So essentially, this one goes into examples of narrowed or clarified scope of the HERS rating requirements for large additions. So when you finish an attic or a basement space, as long as you're not altering the building footprint or the roof line, it's not going to be subject to a HERS rating. Which is a really good, significant change where it does provide clarification that most projects that might finish their basement or something like that don't need to actually do a rating on that space. Additionally, the historic buildings aren't subject to the HERS rating requirements when you have an addition or alteration to that historic building. Next slide, please. So, and then I talk a little bit more about the more lenient performance standards. And as I said here, so the requirements did change. So previously a mixed fuel building had to achieve a HERS 52. Now it has to achieve a 65. So that actually reduces the stringency pretty significantly here. And when you use solar on the project or make it all electric, it's actually subject to a 5-point increase in the HERS credit even further. So instead of having to do a 65, you can do a 70 or a 75 when you combine either all electric or solar, or both can get you a 75. And then there's also some provisions that were outlined in the new update relating to accessory dwelling units, where previously they were subject to the requirements for new construction, but now they do have a more lenient value of a 52 through a 58, depending on different features that we talked about before with the inclusion of solar or making it all electric. Next slide, please. All right, and the last thing I want to mention is that there were new flexibility provisions added to the code in the new update that relate to embodied carbon. So now you have more flexibility in the HERS limits if you meet a particular measure relating to that. And essentially what that does is look at the global warming potential of insulating materials or concrete used in the project, as opposed to just the emissions that you operate while running the building. One other significant update is that the R value requirement for ceilings was reduced from an R60 to an R49 when following the prescriptive path, which is allowed for additions and alterations. And then that are under 1,000 square feet, larger additions and alterations are subject to the HERS requirements that I noted previously. But if it's under 1,000 square feet, you can use that prescriptive path. And there's also added some leniency for projects that are achieving PASFO certification, which is sort of above code measure that's an option that's available to meet compliance, where if you don't meet that requirement, you can still qualify for the code just with some clarifying language there. So that just goes into detail about some of the significant changes that were made to the stretch code. And as I said, they actually help reduce the stringency of it pretty significantly. So is really favorable amongst different organizations and stakeholders, and really is in response to stakeholder feedback that was received. So with that, I'll pass on to the next speaker. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Greetings, counselors. Wait, is this working? Yeah. Greetings, counselors. It's I, Sean, your faithful sustainability manager. I just want to say it's so cool that we can get together like this and work for the public good. I just can't get over how awesome that is. Anyway, my reason for being here is to give you a rundown of where we're at in the application and how big a lift it might be to push it forward if the council decides that they want to pursue this. As you heard before, we have 5 criteria that we need to satisfy, and so far we're at 2. We have by right solar zoning, and we have expedited permitting in all those zoning sites where we still have to create an energy reduction plan. We need to revisit our fuel efficient vehicle policy. There's been a lot of progress in EVs lately, and so it's something that we I think, need to redo. And obviously, we need to adopt the stretch code, which is, I think, the stretchy elephant in the room today. So detailed work that needs to be done is the bulk of it is in the energy reduction plan. We did one in the last go around, but we're going to have to start from scratch. I've been corralling all the electrical and gas bills, so we're on that front. We're in pretty good shape, but to complete it, we're going to need to get a better handle on our fuel spending for vehicles. And I've gotten a lot of help. I want to shout out to John Tessanari. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but he's been very heroically gathering that data for me. And so once I have that, I'll be able to have a little better idea of what we'll need to do to flesh out the energy reduction plan. One of the larger elements of it, after we get our energy values under control, is to identify energy savings possibilities, projects. Last time we had help from the Cape Light Compact and Rise Engineering. Mass DOER estimates that a good energy reduction plan takes about 3 months. If it's just me, it might take a little longer. I wish I could give you like a detailed timeline right now, but I haven't gotten deep enough into it to tell you how long it will take. You've heard a little bit of this. This is the benefits, the concrete benefits, like why do we want to even do this? You heard a little bit about this already from Laura Selmer. We get a $220,000 grant, like a welcome to the party grant to start off with. I looked at the history of grants across Massachusetts, and this is just an average. We could expect, I think, to get about something in the $50,000 range per year. I wouldn't hold on to that number too tightly. I think the reality is more like some years we'll have a really great project and we'll get $200,000 for something really, really awesome, and other years maybe 15. I think over the decades it'll average out to somewhere in the mid 50s. I think for me, one of the real reasons why this is worth pursuing is that we'd be getting money for doing things that we're kind of already doing anyway, and so we're leaving money on the table. One example is the efficient fleet plan. My preliminary analysis suggests that if we switch out our leased hybrids for EVs, that we'd save about between $600,000 and $700,000 over 10 years. And this is like something that the Green Communities is prompting us to do, and we'll get funding from Green Communities, and we'll also get rewarded just from the project on its own. I think another winning element for Green Communities is that we can get grants that can help push projects over the line that might not pencil out on their own. I think Jane Ward is going to talk in a lot more detail about this, but HVAC electrification comes to mind for me. It can save energy, but sometimes the cost is so high that it doesn't necessarily reward the department's budget line that's doing it, but the impacts to health and human welfare can be quite substantial, and a Green Community grant can make a borderline project pencil out. There's a reason that I made HVAC electrification like a centerpiece of the large microgrid grant that we submitted. It's the impact on student welfare and lifetime earnings. It's from increased ventilation is enormous, and so I think even beyond the energy efficiency, even beyond the grants, this is something that could produce dividends for us in the future. I'll be around for questions, obviously.
If I could say one thing in the beginning, I talked about the major changes in the last 3 or 4 years. I forgot to mention we now have Sean Hogan, our fabulous sustainability manager.
Oh yeah, I think I also forgot one thing is that I think some people were asking how many buildings this might be impacting every year, and our estimate is that it impacts about 50 new builds per year.
Chris.
Cool.
Chris, you're up next.
I am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Mazzola. I am the production manager at Home Energy Raters. We are a home energy rating service. Our office is in Sagamore Beach. We cover all of Massachusetts, southern Maine, southern New Hampshire, northern Rhode Island, and northern Connecticut. We do complete just over 2,000 HERS ratings a year. We have 20 employees. We work with just about 2,000 clients. These range from homeowners through large-scale developers. We do single-family homes, multifamily homes, lead for homes projects, and passive house projects. Let me flip my slide here. We also do base code compliance, res checks, com checks, manual J's, all the things that are required by both the stretch code and the base code. This is a map of Barnstable County. The points, the green point, this is a GIS map. These are all of the HERS ratings that my company has completed in Barnstable County over the last few years. These projects were not mandated to be HERS ratings. They did them for other reasons. They did them to cost engineer their project. They did it out of habit. These builders don't necessarily build just in Barnstable. They build all over the Upper Cape, Lower Cape, off the Cape. They build for the security of having a third-party verifier. But I think particularly build because we can cost engineer their project. The Massachusetts Building Code, the 2021 IECC, the 225 CMR, and the 780 CMR, all refer to this table 406. That is the minimum required HERS, minimum required R values for the assemblies of a home. Roofs, walls, floors, foundations. These R values can represent significant costs to a builder. Currently, the table 406 was actually that February change, that change we had this past February, did reduce the prescriptive R value for attics and roof lines from R60 to R49. So in the past, historically, we've always been able to value engineer these homes through the UA trade-off of a HERS rating from that R60 to somewhere closer to the point of diminishing return for our climate zone, which is somewhere between an R38 and R44. In most cases, this would represent thousands of dollars savings to a contractor. The second big impact is the above-grade wall assembly prescriptively is an R30. That's a difficult R value to reach in a 2x6 traditionally framed wall. To get to 30, you would either need to add continuous insulation on the outside of the wall or on the inside of the wall, which would require expansion jams to be used around windows and doors. This is a finished carpenter in an expense that we can avoid through the value engineering and UA trade-offs, bringing, in most cases, actually in all cases of the homes we rated in 2024, we could reduce that R value back down to an R20 or an R21 fiberglass bat, which is a 5-inch bat. It fits in the traditional cavity. It's a cheaper insulation. And, you know, in building science, we look at the R value of the assembly, not necessarily the material used in that assembly. So builders will always have the option of using fiberglass, open cell spray foam, mineral wool, low embodied carbon materials like timber HP. These are all different ways that builders can build the home they want to build, meet the expectations of their clients, the designers, and the building code. We're proud of the fact that we remain third-party verifiers. We're not building consultants. I don't tell builders what they need to do, what they should do, what they have to do. Builders can do what they want. They just have to meet that final HERS score. In most cases, even with the current HERS 42 for mixed fuel homes, it's not a heavy lift. Our builders have been working for years now, back since 2006. We've been working toward these numbers. I sit on a number of boards for the state. I try to keep my builders 18 months ahead of the curve. So we've been hitting these numbers across the Cape and across the state of Massachusetts for some time now. So we can represent savings. I know there are studies that would say the stretch code will add cost to a construction project, and that may be true. But I'll boldly say it comes down to the relationship between the HERS rater and the builder and the architect. There are ways to value engineer these projects, and there are ways to save money, and then end up with a much better, safer, healthier home. So as I said earlier, the biggest benefit is the flexibility for these builders in the HERS rating. We look at what the builder feels is the biggest savings in what they're comfortable with. So some builders will go with a much higher performing window, and they'll use that high performing window to offset maybe insulation in an attic, which allows them to do and finish spaces that they may not have been able to at a higher R value because of the depth of the cavities. So I will say that I know that adopting the stretch code will eliminate an option for builders to do a HERS rating or not. But I will say we do represent savings to a builder in flexibility. So again, we do have, we have clients who are going to want to remain fossil fuels. They're going to want to have gas. We have clients who want gas cooking. They want gas fireplaces. They want gas furnaces. They're comfortable with that. I would never want to tell a homeowner that they could not have something in the home that they are building and they're paying for and they're going to live in. If they want a gas furnace, I'm going to put a gas furnace in. I will find a way to do it. And there are good ways to do it. We do have state laws that we are looking forward, maybe not looking forward toward. To the 2030 fossil fuel moratoriums in Massachusetts, where home builders will not be able to use fossil fuels any longer for heating, cooling, and hot water. That is a decarbonization goal of the state. It's something we will work toward. We will keep our builders, we'll allow our builders to continue meeting their expectations as long as we possibly can. We do work with a lot of builders to properly size solar PV arrays so that these all-electric homes do not drive those utility costs through the roof. We know the utility rates in Massachusetts are very high right now. And the last big benefit, do I go to the next slide? Yeah, okay, sorry. So my last, last big benefit for a HERS rating is that it is a requirement of the Mass Save incentive program. Through Mass Save, single-family new construction residents will get a base incentive of $7,500. If the builder decides to chase additional funds, there is an Energy Star. If you fully certify with Energy Star, you can get $15,000. If you build a passive house, it's $25,000, and that can go up to $40,000 with some additional funding. There are additional funds and alternative energy credits that are available when a builder uses air source heat pumps. Those typically worth $1 a square foot of conditioned floor area. There are weatherization incentives for existing homes. The Mass Save Renovations and Additions program is very robust right now. An average renovation, a level 3 alteration to a single-family home will get somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 in incentive money. And there are zero-interest energy loans to help renovations and additions, and in some cases, new construction homes to get additional all-electric heat pumps for heating, cooling, and hot water. And I think we went over all that. Is this one me too? I guess this is mine, okay. Under the base code, it is required that every new construction residential low-rise home has a blower door test. The forced hot air duct system, distribution systems are tested, and they need to meet the ASHRAE 62.2 for ventilation. These diagnostic testings have to be done whether it's a base code town or it's a stretch code town. The cost of a HERS rating is typically offset by both the Mass Save incentives and by the net cost savings we can value engineer out of the project. I guess that's about it. That's about it. Yeah, we're good. I think we're good. I think we're good. That was enough.
Thank
Thank you. So next we have Chris Gloninger.
Thanks, Barry. And we can just start off with the slides if we can. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm an atmospheric and climate scientist. I have spent approximately 20 years as a broadcast meteorologist. A majority of my career was at NBC Boston. Then I moved to Iowa, and that's when I changed careers, when I got a death threat for covering climate change in the part of the country where agriculture is such a big part of the economy. I've landed back on Cape Cod at Woods Hole Group as a senior climate scientist. So I come here tonight not just as a committee member, but as a climate scientist who eats, breathes, sleeps science and climate data. So as we go on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about how we know. And this graph really tells that story. It's a graph with two data points that are plotted: temperature and carbon dioxide emissions. Now, if you look at the trend, they go up about the same pace. Yes, there's deviations with temperature. That's what we call natural variability, El Nino, La Nina. If you're a weather buff and listen to the local news, you've probably heard those terms. That's why there are year-to-year, even decade-to-decade variations. But the general trend since the Industrial Revolution is for the temperature and CO2 to go up. I will say that climate scientists have just as much data that humans are causing climate change than doctors have that smoking causes cancer. I give talks on climate change on my free time. It costs me money to do these talks. And that is a stat that most people just can't believe. but it's true. It's just a PR campaign that the oil companies have paid the same public relations companies and media relations companies that said that smoking was good for you. They're telling you that burning carbon emissions and fossil fuels are just fine. So the next slide, we see that change. We see that connection right there. And you might wonder, how do we know what happened before the Industrial Revolution? It's a great question. And if you look at the data sources that we have, tree rings don't just tell you the age of the tree, but they can tell you the carbon dioxide concentrations throughout the last 5,000 years. Ice cores can tell us about 100,000 or more years worth of data, and ocean sediment about 5 million years worth of data. And that can give us a complete picture of what carbon dioxide emissions have looked like across the planet across millions of years. And the rate of warming is what's alarming. There were palm trees before humans were on this planet, in the North Pole and the South Pole. But it's the rate of warming and how we've developed our coastlines that makes this such a critical issue. If we look at the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the issue over time. Over 100,000 to 800,000 years, you see the ice ages going up and down, the carbon dioxide concentrations, until we hit that breaking point in the Industrial Revolution of where temperatures began to climb significantly globally. And if you look at this graph, what's going to happen at the end, it's going to pivot on its side. And you'll see that all the warmer years, the temperature anomalies, as you look over the course of the pre-industrial average, have gone up significantly over time, and they get farther and farther away from the center of that circle. Now, this isn't weather. It's not 50 degrees one day, 80 degrees the next. Again, that is the definition of weather. And you might say, well, what is the big deal of about 1.5 degree difference, 1.5 degrees Celsius difference off that average temperature? Well, we've hit our 550th consecutive month where the global average temperature has been above average. If this was natural variability, if it was anything other than human caused, we would see 1 or 2 months that were below average. But if you look at that graph, the two graphs that you see on the screen, it paints a story that I think you really, really need to understand that 1.5 degrees is more than just the day-to-day weather. If you look at the human body, my colleague Jane's going to talk a little bit more about the health impacts, but if I'll use the analogy of the human body and the average temperature that we have at 98.6 degrees. If we run a fever for days and days and days on end, we're not talking about a 200-degree fever. We're talking a fever that's a couple of degrees above that normal. And if you run that fever for days and weeks, what starts to happen? Your body starts to shut off. Your organs fail, and ultimately it may end up dying because of that long high-grade fever. And that is the problem with climate change and the fact that we are so much above that long-term average, and that's what's concerning us scientists. And the next slide shows all the other possibilities. And for climate scientists to come up with humans being the main cause, unfortunately, was very difficult to come up with that, considering what it would take. Things like changing to a green community, things that we would need to do collectively to change the trajectory that we're on, because it costs money. It does. But if you look at everything else, the natural variability, you saw the temperature plot, and there were fluctuations, El Nino and La Nina. That explains that. Well, that isn't the reason why we're warming. Volcanic activity would actually do the reverse. You'd actually see temperatures going down as it spews out aerosols that reflect the sun's energy back out into space. It actually drops the global temperature. Solar variability, that would last 11 years. Our warming's been going on a lot longer than 11 years. And then the Milankovitch cycles, that has to do with the Earth's tilt in orbit. That happens over tens of thousands of years, and that too does not add up, unfortunately. This is going to take the monumental shift that we saw during World War II. Did car manufacturers want to switch from making vehicles to making wartime equipment? Absolutely not, but they knew that they had to. And we're at that breaking point right now. And as a climate scientist, I can't double down on that wording and that analogy. And if you look at Barnstable County as a whole, I know the town of Barnstable makes up about 50,000 people in the county, but the county is extremely vulnerable to climate change. And it may not seem like 50,000 people can make a difference, but now, at this point in time in our country's history, it's more important than ever before because of what's happening with federal policy. And it is absolutely critical that we take steps to make sure that we ensure a future that so many of the public comments were about the beauty of our shoreline, the beauty of our coast, the beauty of our waterfront. It's not going to be anything if we don't protect our climate. And that is what is at risk in Barnstable County alone. And if we can round out our next couple of slides, you can see that our warming is accelerating. A lot of people will say, how do you trust weather models versus climate models? Well, the science has improved significantly. And unfortunately, the climate models aren't even keeping up with the rate of warming that we're seeing. And if you were seeing a linear or a stable warming, it would be that black dotted line. But if you look at that red dotted line, that is the acceleration of the warming that we've seen in recent years. How are we doing with emissions? And that's the final slide that I have to talk about. We need to go a lot farther. And again, we don't have collective federal action anymore that we can rely on. We need to be below that 50% mark, which was the goal set for 2030. And we're not quite there. And again, it's going to take communities to pick up that gap. And I think the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. You can't pass that to somebody else. If you look at China, they've installed more solar than any other country in the last handful of years. If you look at other countries that have gone to renewable energy, it is far outpacing the United States. And still per capita, the United States is the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide. And with that, I'll switch to my committee member, my fellow committee member, Dr. Jane Ward.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, thanks so much, and thanks to everybody on the team, and thanks to the council for hosting us tonight. I appreciated the health analogies leading into my talk, and I just wanted to say a little bit about why do I care about this? I was in Air Force Doc for 26 years, and when I finished my time, I went back to school and earned a Master's of Public Health, and the Master's of Public Health focused on health and the built environment. At about the same time, I earned a LEED Green Associate, which is a rating that the U.S. Green Building Council gives the beginners that are learning about green building, and that was back in 2010. As part of that MPH, I worked with a group of colleagues, and we started a committee at the National Institutes of Health with a specific goal of challenging the U.S. Green Building Council, because initially they left indoor air quality as an optional a rating feature when people built their buildings trying to obtain LEED status of one form or another. So we were very concerned that indoor air quality was not properly addressed early on. That's since been rectified. So just to narrow the discussion of indoor air quality down to how the stretch code will impact it, I'm going to start with this illustration, this cartoon about indoor air quality. This is something I didn't realize at all until I started studying this, but indoor air quality is actually 2 to 5 times, at least 2 to 5 times worse, more polluted, more unhealthy than outside air in the same location. And it's approximately 90% of us spend 90% of our time indoors, breathing that not very healthy air. About 1 out of 5 have significant allergies to something in the air in the building that they're in, whether it's their home, their office, their school. And the EPA ranks indoor air quality pollution or contamination in the top 5 of all health risks. But the good news is in this bottom block, there's a 99.98% chance of greatly improving indoor air with proper heating, ventilation systems, filtration, humidification, and we're going to focus on the ventilation piece because that's where the stretch code really is an important move beyond the base code. It's the requirement for improved ventilation. The other aspect of the stretch code is the incentivizing electrification over combustion of fossil fuel run appliances. Next slide, please. So what are some of the health risks? What are some of the indoor air contaminants, first of all, in the right-hand column? This is just a few of them. This is not all of them. This is a few of them. There is at least 20 or 30 significant indoor air contaminants that are often found in many buildings commonly. Particulate matter, tiny particles. You might have heard of the rating on air quality ratings of PM 2.5 or PM 10.0. Those are micron size of particulates. The tinier particulates, the 2.5s, are the more dangerous because they can go right through the alveoli in our lungs. When we breathe in, they can go right through the alveoli into our bloodstream and cause all sorts of trouble. They can come from smoke, fire smoke, forest fire smoke, tobacco smoke, from dust, from allergens, from viral particles, mold. Volatile organic compounds, you can think of those more as chemicals in the air, and those are chemicals that you can think of that you can smell, like paints, cleaning products, also could be combustion products, also could be cleaning products or personal care products. Those are not healthy for any of us, frankly. Carbon dioxide can just be people breathing out. It's our exhalation. That's where the carbon dioxide builds up inside a building, and if you're in a crowded classroom or a crowded theater, it builds up rapidly. It can also be a byproduct of combustion if you have gas appliances in your house. It's not good for you. Radon comes from the soil. It's a radioactive component in the soil. We actually have a fair amount of it on Cape Cod. It's much more prevalent in New Hampshire and Maine, where they have more granite in the soil. But it can be ventilated out and the building can be made safe. All the conditions listed in the left-hand column, sick building syndrome is probably or maybe something you may have heard about. After there was the big focus on building very tight, energy-efficient buildings like we've been talking about so far in this presentation, if you don't also ventilate, you actually make the inside of the building less healthy than if you had a leaky, inefficient, energy inefficient older building. So sick building syndrome is kind of a grab bag for a number of symptoms that don't make you feel very good and don't let you function very well. You get a headache. You may feel like you can't think very clearly. You may fall asleep. The stretch code requires ventilation with something called an energy recovery ventilator. And I want you to go to the next slide, please. What good does that do? The next slide shows that the energy recovery ventilator, next slide, will bring in outside air, run it through a central heat exchanger and humidity exchanger if it's an energy recovery ventilator. And then if it's in the winter, you're bringing in cold air. When the air goes past this center static plate core, it'll get warmed up and humidified before it goes into the house. In the summer, the opposite happens. This is a heat exchanger that allows bringing in outside air to be done with more energy efficiency. So it's a tremendous step up that the stretch code requires in order to improve ventilation with outside air, but also don't lose your energy efficiency that you've worked so hard for. So the electric appliances are a tremendous step forward for health because that eliminates the fact of releasing the combustion products into the indoor air. And people may love the gas, they might like the way it looks, they may feel like it's cozier, but it's basically poisoning you. I'm sorry to tell you that. Next slide. So the green community, as Lisa mentioned, many of our fellow towns on Cape Cod have already used their monies. The MASHP funds in particular have been used to improve indoor air in many of their schools And they've done that through the use of funds for improved HVAC, improved building controls, and energy management for their indoor air systems. Other Cape towns have similarly spent quite a bit of their green community funds on improving indoor air by improving their HVAC, their energy management, and their building controls. Last slide. So it's a huge step forward for our community for indoor air in our schools, in our municipal buildings, and in our new residences that people are building to adopt the stretch code and improve ventilation. And it also is a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of some of the mass save incentivization and electrify major appliances. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Well, that ends our workshop. I apologize if it took a little bit longer than we had projected, but we're available to answer questions. You can direct them at specific speakers or just to me, and I'll assign the person that I think is most appropriate to answer.
Barry, just, excuse me, just as a point of information, Brian Florence is here.
Okay.
If someone had a question on that.
Okay. Yeah, Brian was here. He told me he wouldn't be here, but he's here, and I guess he can answer questions that people have as well.
I had one quick question. In Lisa's presentation, she talked of as right various sightings of things. Could you get a little bit more detail on that? To me, sometimes when things are as of right, they can be concerning.
Okay, let me ask Lisa.
So the Green Communities Program requires you to have at least 1 acre of property that you allow as of right siting. Some communities have as of right siting for example, light manufacturing or R&D in industrial areas, and that could qualify. Sean said that you already have an as of right area where you allow solar PV. So there's just the guidance requires, I know Sean has already reviewed it, and you have an area that meets that requirement. It's not signifying that you need to have an entire zone, a large zone, or your entire zoning map allow something via as of right. It's just a small area where you'll allow as of right manufacturing of either solar, of some kind of alternative renewable generation, or light manufacturing, or R&D, or solar PV, and that's all that's required.
Okay, thank you.
I actually printed out the zoning ordinance in case someone wanted it, just in case.
Any questions on my right? Councilor Lutke?
First of all, what an amazing presentation. It's so obvious listening to you, the way you rattle off the codes and the R values, and it's incredible how much you know about this. I was here, I was not on the council when the vote came up, and I don't remember nearly as comprehensive as a presentation. And this is fantastic, and it sounds like the program has adjusted to what's going on, and I would be entirely in support of Sean and whatever team he needs to move forward. I have the same concern that President Tamish has when we said we have the by right solar, and I saw a nice little check mark. I believe our by right solar has been very contentious in Marston's Mills. Is that where it is? You talking about that area in Marston's Mills?
I probably should have brought a map for you, but yeah, I believe there is one. There's 2 major sites, as I understand it. One in Hyannis, kind of in the industrial airport area, and one in Marston's Mills.
Yeah, I just am aware that there's been quite a bit of concern with the one in Marston's Mills. So the little check mark had me a little concerned about that. So, maybe more to come on that. And do we have the R&D site as well? We have that?
We don't have to have both. I don't.
Oh, you don't have to have both?
No.
Nope,
Okay.
it's one.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just commenting. Sean is right. You only need one site. It can be one or the other. Or one of the 3, or all 3, or 2. But if you meet the requirement, one thing is all that's required.
And one question. It seemed like there was a lot of discussion about new buildings, especially what you were talking about. We have enormous amount of buildings already existing and a lot of them historic. Do you work with that at all? That's a concern to me, to maintain the historic character. We have the Kings Highway Historic District. How do you work? I just want to think, as we move forward, how is that going to impact the renovation of some of those? Do they get more leeway? I mean, what's the intersection of the historic with the green?
I can speak to that. So essentially, both the base code and the stretch code, as well as the model code that they're based on, essentially adopts the section unamended. So the code itself does have a provision relating to historic buildings in section R501.6. And essentially what it says is that the energy code shall not apply for historic buildings, provided that a report's been submitted to the code official and signed by the owner, a registered design professional, or representative of the State Historic Preservation Office or Historic Preservation Authority having jurisdiction, demonstrating that compliance with the provision would threaten, degrade, or destroy the historic form, fabric, or function of the building. So essentially what that means is if there's evidence that can be shown that the energy code update or change you'd have to make would impact the historic nature of the building, it wouldn't be subject to the requirements. And that's the same type of provision that's currently in the energy code as well. Additionally, there is a new footnote in the section for the maximum HERS rating index that does call out specific information relating to historic buildings. So additions, alterations, or change of use covered by the provision are subject to the maximum HERS rating, except for historic buildings, which may opt to follow the prescriptive path for alterations or additions or changes of use. So historic buildings also are not subject to the HERS rating as per that additional footnote that was added in the new stretch code update. So I know that might be too much code detail there, but I want to just provide some background. Thanks.
No, that really answers it. It's a big concern of me to keep the character of Cape Cod in our historic districts, of which we have quite a few. And then Chris Gollinger, I'm so glad you're back here on Cape Cod. I'm sorry you got the threats that you did. What a magnificent presentation. And you're just an amazing asset. And I'm so glad Woods Hole has you and you're here. Thank you. I'm very much in support of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Head.
Hi, I don't want to really extend this too much further, but I just have a question. Have any communities dropped out of this program? If so, how many and why? Because it seems that the way it's structured, it doesn't encourage long-term quote-unquote membership.
Yeah, Lisa, maybe.
There have been 3 communities who dropped out of the Green Communities program. The program started in 2010, and all 3 of them dropped out when the stretch code was changed in 2023. And we do believe that a lot of that was due to the large additions and renovations piece. And we did address that in February of 2025. The changes were effective immediately. And another thing I would say about the early 2023, when the code rolled out with the additions and renovations, it rolled out very quickly, and a lot of the training and technical guidance was not available at that time. And it took us a while to get it in place. And so I think that we're in much better shape now. And the 3 communities that did fall out were Clinton, Rochester, and Essex.
So, and just another way of looking at it is 99% of the communities did not drop out. And, and basically I would say that some of the concerns that led these 3 towns to drop out, I think, have been very well addressed by the February 2025 updates to the code.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Starr?
Thank you, President Tamish. I'd just like to commend the committee, for a volunteer committee, for putting this together and having such a variety of speakers, which made it great to listen to and hear all the different perspectives. I like the fact that the stretch code has changed based on feedback from builders. It now includes not only brand new buildings, but also large additions. I just want to point out that, we're talking about HERS ratings of 42, 55, that most Habitat for Humanity buildings on Cape Cod have a HERS rating of either 0 or 1 or 2. So they're basically, they make as much electricity as they use. So I think this is a great program. If we got $220,000, that money goes back into our municipal energy system and helps us be able to spend that to lower our energy costs, not just for one time, but for years to come. So I think it's important to keep in mind the long-term effects of this money. As we move ahead with this, last time we didn't pass the stretch code. And I think we should think about, as a group, passing the stretch code and saying to Mr. Hogan, go ahead and work on the energy reduction plan. And as soon as you've got that done, to go ahead and apply for green communities. I don't want Mr. Hogan to go through 3 months of work and then have us say, well, we don't really like the stretch code. So I think as we bring this forward, we're going to ask people to think about the stretch code, and if you want the stretch code, we can vote on that. But we're not going to spend 3 months and thousands of dollars like we did last time and have it go for naught. So it's not a good use of our resources. So I think we'll bring forward the stretch code in a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. President Clark.
Thank you very much, President Tamish. And thank you for your comprehensive presentation. Very good organization and all of that, bringing forth different angles to address. I see that I applaud the state for developing a more legal performance standard suite, or a suite of those performance standards. And I welcome the fact that it was endorsed by the construction industry. And that's a big feather in your cap. I'm a little embarrassed that Barnstable, the town of Barnstable, is an outlier in the state of Massachusetts on the map that you showed us. I look forward to saving a lot of money. Apparently, it was identified by the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee and recommended by them that we consider adopting the stretch code in green communities to save us. I forgot what it was. I was trying to look it up. I believe $1 million. And finally, I'd be proud to honor Peter Doyle for his dedication to our town. So I'd be in favor of this.
Thank you. Any comment on my left? Councilor Levesque?
Thank you, President Tamish. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I look forward to continually reviewing the presentation. I was part of the council, in full disclosure, I was part of the council that voted not for the stretch code. And like 2 previous councils before me, I didn't see much change from the previous councils. And I'm not really embarrassed. I think that's a bad word, unfortunately, to say that we didn't do that, because it's not like we weren't in green community. I think Mark Ells said that very proficiently in 2021, that we're actually more green than some of the green communities that are in place. Thank you, Dave and Anthony, for nodding your head. We did not have this comprehensive of a workshop, absolutely right. But at the same time, we did do our research, we did put some work in. But the bottom line is, this is a new day. The February 25, from what I've seen, is an improvement on what's happening. We are moving towards higher energy costs, and one of the things that we can do to reduce that is to conserve energy. So it's important to, as things change and times change, to also change and be open-minded to what's happening moving forward. So with that, I thank you. And I'm also a big fan of Sean Hogan, and I trust him, and so and appreciate all his efforts in regards to that. And again, I can't say enough about the work. That might have been the best presentation I've ever seen from this committee, and I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you mentioning Peter Doyle, because he did a lot of work for this town to get us where we are, and we are a green community a lot because of Peter Doyle. So I appreciate that, and this is one of those things too, when it was tied. It was, people struggled. Like, it was a 51% in favor or 49. It wasn't this thing where we listened to builders, we listened to our constituents. It wasn't this, anti-environment or that kind of atmosphere. And Chris, I really appreciate you working with contractors. That's very encouraging, because a lot of this was considered to be a threat to and I don't see that now. So I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate the, Lisa and the DOER really listening to people and coming to a compromise, because it's all about having a conversation. And so I just want to say thank you for that, and I look forward to continue reviewing that, and I look forward to coming to the council again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment on my left? Seeing none? I wanted to thank you. As has been commented on, a fantastic presentation, and we will be moving forward.
Thank you so much.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Okay. I would like to take a 10-minute break. When we get back with the forbearance of the council, I'd like to move 2025-146 up, which is just an acceptance of a gift and a discussion of that. So, 10 minutes. we will resume again. With the permission of the council, I would like to move forward 2025-146. If no one has an objection. And Councilor Burdick, could you read in 146, please?
Thank you, President Tamish. I'll be happy to. Let's see. This is item 2025-146. It's an item of new business and may be acted upon by majority vote. It's the authorization to accept a gift from the Boy Scouts of America Troop Number 52 and Scout David Ellis of a reflection tree and related items and services to be used to create a designated outdoor reflection area at the Barnstable Police Department building in Hyannis.
Second.
Okay. All right. Let me get the right page here. Okay. I recognize Deputy Chief Jennifer Ellis and David Ellis, no relation, I believe, that they admit to anyway, for the rationale.
Good evening, Mr. President and town councilors. I'm here tonight with David Ellis. David is currently a student at Hargrave Military Academy, and he is an Eagle Scout candidate. In October of last year, he came to the police department. He met with the chief and I, and he presented an Eagle Scout project. It was very nice, but I had something a little bit more in mind. And he fully embraced it. I said, we would like to have a reflection tree for officers to go out and be able to have a timeout to sit down, to gather their thoughts, just have a place where they can reflect and have a moment to themselves. And he fully embraced it. We moved forward. There's a number of people that started coming to these meetings. David was attending these meetings mostly on Zoom during his study periods from school. And a lot of people came together for this. Chris Kelsey assisted me greatly with this from the police department, Patrick Kelleher from Structures and Grounds, Tyler King from Structures and Grounds, Chris Joyce, who David works for in the summer, has been instrumental, and of course David's parents. And we just all moved forward together and came up with this phenomenal plan. So I would like to introduce David to you and let him tell you a little bit about this wonderful project.
Good evening, Town Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to share my Eagle Scout project with you. My name is David Ellis. I'm 17-year-old, and I live in Marston's Mills with my parents and two sisters. Currently, I'm a senior at Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia, and hold the rank of First Lieutenant of Echo Company. In addition, I'm a Life Scout with Troop 52 Katuitt, as well as Troop 68 at Hargrave Military Academy. Scouting has been an integral part of my upbringing, having been involved with Scouts since I was in elementary school at West Villages. As many of you know, attaining the rank of Eagle Scout is no small feat. Only 4% of Scouts nationally reach the rank of Eagle Scout. In fact, our U.S. military recognizes this achievement, and soldiers who are Eagle Scouts receive an advanced enlisted rank upon completion of basic training. Close to a year ago, I started thinking about an Eagle Scout project. These projects are intended to benefit the community and demonstrate the candidate's leadership. My father is a 24-year veteran of the Barnstable Police Department, and I have witnessed firsthand the sacrifices that my father has made for both my family and the community we call home. I made it a priority to focus my project on giving back to the police department. Last fall, I approached Chief Gene Chalice and Deputy Chief Jennifer Ellis about my idea. With the help of Chris Joyce from Joyce Landscaping, I designed a reflection area to be erected on the ground of the police department. This area is intended to allow police officers and civilian staff a peaceful outdoor space to rest, gather, and reflect. There have been so many people who have embraced this project and stepped up to help bring my idea to life. I could not have done it without the help of my parents, the benefactor, the Barnstable Police Department, as well as town employees and friends. The list of people include Chief Gene Chalice, Deputy Chief Jennifer Ellis, Officer Chris Kelsey, Structures and Grounds Division Supervisor Patrick Keller, Structure and Grounds Section Foreman Tyler King, Assistant Town Attorney Allison Cogliano, Assistant Manager Director David Anthony, and Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn. I raised $2,805 in donations from friends, family, and community members, which will cover the cost of the stones. In addition to the monetary donations, the following donations have been made. From Joyce Landscaping, the site prep work, masonry oversight, loam and seed. From Beacon Gardens, central tree and plantings, Cape Cod aggregates, pea stone and asphalt for sub-base, Hockey Monument, 2 granite benches. Stonewood Products extended a 25% discount on the cost of the stone materials, and the Blue Coats of Barnstable have donated in the amount of $3,800 for 2 granite markers for an outdoor low-voltage lighting fixture. Joyce Landscaping is doing the prep work, and myself, along with my fellow scouts and volunteers, will be laying cobblestone, flagstone, and pea stone. Beacon Gardens has donated plantings and a tree that will be planted in the center, illuminated by lights. With all the help from those around me, family, friends, and local businesses, I truly feel supported by our small community, even when I am far away at school. I am so grateful to have this opportunity to publicly extend a big thank you to everyone who has helped me get this far. Thank you for your consideration in allowing my Eagle Scout project to be a gift to the town of Barnstable, and thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Any discussion? Discussion on my right? Councilor Ledke.
Thank you. What an ambitious project. I was just wondering the maintenance of it. How do you handle that? Have you thought about that in your project?
Regarding the maintenance, I think it would be, I would have to come in every so often because my dad, he's a police officer. I could come in every so often and do the maintenance myself or have someone else help me.
I think that's something that I've spoken with Structures and Grounds about, and they're happy to do that as well. So it's a part of our property that would be cared for and taken care of in any event, and this really beautifies the property, adds to the property, so they're aware of everything that we're doing, and they're happy to contribute.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it stays as beautiful as you've designed it. Thank you.
Any further comment on my right? On my left, Councilor Turkelson.
Thank you, President Tamish. When do you think that this will be finalized so that, the officers and if public are there, we can see this beautiful project?
We don't have a set date yet, but it has to be by some point in May because David, part of him going for his Eagle Scout rank is that he would like to have it presented and then be awarded at his school as well. Do you want to tell them about that?
Yeah. So at my school, it was founded in 1909. It's called Hargrave Military Academy. And I believe it started in 1920s. They started recognizing cadets who attained the rank of Eagle Scout while they were enrolled at the school. And since 1920, I believe there is 25 to 30 people since 1920 who have attained their Eagle Scout rank. And I am trying to push to get my name on there. And the last one was in 2008, I believe.
I hope that you'll come back if you can, and if not, that you'll let us know so that we know that it's complete, so that we can check it out. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Councilor Lebec.
Thank you, President Tamish. David, I just want to say congratulations. It's a great project. I did have a little bit of a sneak peek of what was happening because I'm a director of the Blue Coats, and I also wanted to recognize 2 gentlemen in the back that also are 2 directors of the Blue Coats, and that's Sam Baxter and Cliff Carroll. And I think it's great that Officer Kelsey is here with us as well. Just happens to be doing the detail tonight, ironically enough, and we remiss not to mention retired Sergeant Ben Baxter as well in the back. So I know the room is very appreciative of what you're doing, and I think this is an important piece of what's happening there, and I'm proud not to only be a member of the Blue Coats before I was a Barnstable Town Councilor, but at the same time, proud that we have young men like yourself that are doing things to support the police department, not only financially, but personally, emotionally, and just want to thank you for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Clark.
And thank you very much, David and Deputy Chief Ellis, for this presentation. Please let us know when it's installed. If there's going to be a ceremony, I'd love to attend. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's
And I think that,
definitely going to be a ceremony.
I'm sorry,
There's definitely going to be a ceremony.
Okay.
So we will let everyone know. Thanks.
invite us all.
Absolutely.
And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize David's parents. If you'd stand up. For raising a son that has these ambitions. Thank you. Okay, if we could go to a vote and for any further discussion. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Burdick.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Penn.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Tamish.
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Deputy.
So much. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the old business, 2025-060. We are going to move this to May, excuse me. I didn't write those down, Mr. Clyburn. I apologize. 15 May? Could I have a motion to move 2025-060 to May 15th?
I move to postpone agenda item 2025-060 to May 15th, 2025.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Some councilors have indicated to me that they may like to have a workshop prior to that date to discuss the amendments, the possible amendments to it, and have a presentation by Mr. Kupfer and perhaps Brian Florence as to the implications of some of the amendments and how they would actually work. So with that in mind, we will try to set that up prior to that May 15th date. So motion made and seconded to move this to May 15th. And as I said, do I see any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote? Yeah.
Councilors Clark.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Penn.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Tamish.
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Burdick.
No.
Okay, that is passes.
Okay, thank you.
President
Council-
Tamish,
Yes.
may I recusing myself from the
Okay.
next item, please? Thank
The
you.
record indicates so. Council Lutke, could you read in 2025-083, please?
Yes. This is old business. It's a public hearing with a roll call majority vote of the full council. It's item 2025-083. Appropriation order in the amount of $160,000 to fund the due diligence efforts needed to assist the town council in its evaluation of a potential acquisition by the town of the property located at 167 and 177 Pleasant Street in Hyannis.
Second.
Thank you. And let's see, get on the right page. Made and seconded. This is going to be a public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
Made and seconded to open the public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Councilors Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Penn.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Tamish.
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you. I recognize Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn for the
Thank
rationale.
you, President Tamish, Town Councilors, Andy Clyburn, Assistant Town Manager. It's my pleasure to present the rationale this evening for Appropriation Order 2025, TAC 083. First, I would like to recognize that Mr. Sam Baxter and Mr. Ben Baxter, the property owners, are in attendance this evening, should the council wish to hear directly from them. Also, I would like to recognize the town staff who have worked on this item under the leadership of our Planning and Development Director, Jim Kupfer. We also have our town engineer, town architect, Director of Asset Management, Director of Marine Environmental Affairs, Building Commissioner, First Assistant to Town Attorney, and Finance Director all here with us this evening. So following the reading of the rationale, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Kupfer. He was going to give a brief presentation on the due diligence for this potential strategic acquisition, and the entire team will be available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
The property owner of 0167 and 177 Pleasant Street, which is comprised of 3 parcels identified by the Town of Barnstable Assessor's Map as Map 326, Parcel 150, Map 326, Parcel 150, and Map 326, Parcel 145, collectively referred to as the property, at the Hyannis Inner Harbor, has approached the town about a potential sale to the town of the property, including all structures, piers, and other existing improvements. A comprehensive review of the property as part of a prudent due diligence would allow the town council to better understand the property's current condition and needs, and the effect of both on the property's present value and future capital funding requirements. This due diligence would be needed for town staff to provide the necessary information to the town council, for the town council to consider as it deliberates and makes a decision concerning the town's possible acquisition of the property. Town staff have prepared a scope of work with associated costs for such due diligence efforts. Purchasing a waterfront property involves a unique set of due diligence and cost considerations given the building's age, infrastructure, location, and potential historical or regulatory challenges in a marine environment, subject to potential climate change impacts. With that in mind, town staff have reviewed and identified prudent tasks that should be completed as part of any due diligence effort. An appropriation would be needed to fund this due diligence effort. The proposed scope of work for the due diligence efforts would include an architectural building evaluation, architectural code evaluation, building hazardous materials testing, site survey, waterfront infrastructure assessment, including the use of divers for underwater investigations, architectural staff soft cost, and environmental permitting review. This appropriation request would fund only this initial due diligence. If funded, the results of this due diligence would assist the town council with deciding whether to direct town staff to negotiate with a property owner regarding an acquisition of the property. Further property, financial, market assessments, and title certifications may be necessary if the town council later directs town staff to engage in negotiations to acquire the property. The financial impact, the funding for this will be provided from the general fund reserves, which were last certified July of 2024 at just shy of $31 million. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Kupfer.
Thank you.
Could I make a quick point of order, President Tamish?
Certainly.
I'm quite certain when I read this in, I skipped over the 0. Do you need me to read it again, or do we need to make an amendment to that?
Yes.
I did. I missed the 0.
Read it.
So you want me to read it again?
We better.
Okay.
Excuse me, Jim.
Sorry, Jim. Okay, this is an item of old business. It is a public hearing with a roll call majority vote of the full council. Item 2025-083, appropriation order in the amount of $160,000 to fund the due diligence efforts needed to assist the town council in its evaluation of a potential acquisition by the town of the property located at 167 and 177 Pleasant Street in Hyannis.
Second.
Second for the motion as corrected? Okay. All right, motion made and seconded as corrected. Mr. Kupfer?
All right, excellent. Good evening, all. Jim Kupfer, Director of Planning and Development. As Assistant Town Manager Clyburn mentioned, we have a team of representatives from different departments looking at this parcel or this property, and we bring forward to you this evening a discussion of whether or not to pursue further due diligence. The property in question is more specifically known as 177 Pleasant Street. There's a long history on the site, as we know. Not as long, I haven't touched on as long as one of the earlier speakers touched on, but I begin in the 1900s and our transition from residential to commercial. Then following that in the early 1900s, 1930s, a small fishing house, followed by mid-century a fish market. 1957, you begin to see Baxter's Fish and Chips, and 1967 is the beginning of what you see here today as Baxter's Boathouse Club and Baxter's Fish and Chips. Specifically, the property in question is at the end of Pleasant Street. They're highlighted or encircled in red. I encircled blue where we do own a property already today. Our town Ways of Water, a property that the town has owned for some time, and it abuts also the Steamship Authority. The current situation here before you this evening, the town is being offered an opportunity to purchase the property. This includes, again, a 0.56 acres of land over 3 parcels. So that address that I mentioned to you this evening actually includes 3 parcels, and I'll highlight each of those momentarily. The structures on site are approximately 1940s, as I mentioned in the history, totaling 6,358 square feet of gross floor area. It includes 75 parking spaces, various sized docks, and a licensed restaurant for 180 seats. Those parcels, a little washed out on this site here, but the parcels of land that you see are the predominant parcel, that includes the building. There's another parcel to the north that's within this red. That is mostly that parking area, and then a very tiny parcel, which is the triangle to the left of your screen or the west of the site, that makes up in total 177 Pleasant Street. This is the aerial view of that very same area of land. Again, to the left is Baxter's, the structure, the parking area, the piers that surround it. To the right or the east is our property, the town's property to date, the town's way to water, and our butter, the Steamship Authority. Current conditions, what we know of the site to date, the building in fair condition. So I should mention our team did take a site walk through the property. And understanding the site and its history, we identified just these very overarching elements. The building is in fair condition. Again, just over 6,000 square feet of gross floor area, 4,571 square feet of living area. The property and building do periodically flood. We do have active dock slips at this location. As I mentioned, 75 parking spaces. Drainage is unknown at this time. The seawalls vary in age, condition, and design. The piers supporting the structures are currently unknown. As I mentioned, abuts a town way to water. And obviously, as of right now, there's a busy, active, profitable restaurant. That is the main use. The building itself, I don't need to repeat the size, but mostly over water, held up by piers. The roof and piling should be reviewed. As we identified, the roof and piling should be reviewed by an engineer for soundness. The mechanical equipment should be looked at by a mechanical technician. The grease trap may need inspection as well. We do know, obviously, it is on public water and sewer. So in order to, the question before us today is for the council to understand whether the town should purchase the property. should more due diligence be necessary. And to further that due diligence, as Assistant Town Manager Clyburn mentioned, we met as a team to identify what that due diligence should be if we are to proceed with that. And to further explain that, I'll hand it off to our town engineer to go through each one of these bullets that are in your packet.
Thank you, Jim. Griffin Bowden, town engineer. So Assistant Town Manager Clyburn kind of quickly read through what each of these items is as described in the rationale. I'll provide a little bit more detail as to what we anticipate undertaking with each of these recommended due diligence items. These were prepared working with the working group as well as myself and the town architect. If we have any questions afterwards, both myself and the town architect are here to answer them. So the first item that's identified is our architectural building evaluation. The evaluation would consist of reviewing the building structure, the roof, the exterior siding conditions, windows and door conditions, exterior and interior finishes, handicap accessibility issues, ensuring that it has proper ADA compliance as necessary, or what additional upgrades would be necessary. Means of egress and life safety concerns, evaluation of electrical systems, evaluation of mechanical systems, as Jim noted, and also evaluation of sewage systems and the grease trap, as was also previously noted. Also a list of items that need to be improved and to continue the current operation of the facility would be provided, an estimated cost for repairs of these items. The second item that's identified is an architectural code evaluation. This evaluation would consist of things such as historic district review. This area is in a historic district, so we would need to understand the repercussions of improvements to the building and to the facility, as well as potential demolition of the structure, if that was so desired in the future. Review the existing use and zoning of the building and the implications of that use, implications of continued use of the building, implications of the of a potential change of use of the building, and determination if improvements trigger code compliance upgrades as a result of floodplain issues. The next item is a site survey. We would basically survey the land, understand what was potentially being considered to be acquired. Specifically here, we would get more detail on the couple of items that are outstanding that are uncertain, such as drainage and the existing grease trap and sewage system. We would also locate all the underground utilities. We would identify the flood elevation, which is obviously of critical concern here, understand what portions of the building are in what respect to the flood elevation, what mechanical systems are in respect to the flood elevation, et cetera. So we have a full understanding of the implication of the flood zones on this property as opposed to just a planning level, which we have with the existing information. The next item is hazardous materials testing. Anytime that we have a structure in town, we obviously want to understand if there's any hazardous materials in the building. Given the age of the building, it's possible and likely that there are some hazardous materials in the building. So we would include some destructive testing, which would basically understand if there's any hazardous materials and identify what the implications of that would be for instance, for remodeling or demolition, and assign a cost to that. The next item is a waterfront infrastructure assessment with divers. So this would basically look at the existing piers that hold up the building. It would look at the bulkheads, revetments, docks, piles, et cetera. So all the waterfront infrastructure that is really kind of the core of this property. Get divers in there underground who are competent under the water to understand what's going on where we can't see, and get an assessment as to the condition of these items. In addition, environmental and property permitting and assessments, so we would do further due diligence on the existing permits for the property, and try to understand what the right and left lateral limits of environmental permitting would be for certain conditions. And the last item is a minor item, but we always need to note this, and that's our architectural team, other than the town architect, is funded through the projects they work on. So anytime that we have a project that the town architecture's team is working on, we usually carry budget for us to be able to pay their salaries for the time that they would spend on it. So that's what the architectural soft costs are. So that's the summary of the due diligence that we've identified as a team for the site, and that makes up the $160,000 request. I'm here for any questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
I just wanted to wait for Griffin to sit down before I asked him a question.
I'll come right back up.
No, in the permitting process, I'm curious about that because earlier on you mentioned demolition. Throughout this evaluation, what would be the perhaps the input from the public, town councilors, the staff, the Baxters, perhaps, as to the variety of uses, and how would you evaluate permits for a variety? I mean, do you have enough money there? I'm just curious about the range of possibility in this due diligence.
I appreciate the question. So the environmental permitting assessment wouldn't be for any specific use or anything like that. It would be to generally and not for any specific future proposals. That's not the stage we're at right now, right? We're evaluating the existing site and also understanding what types of permits would potentially restrict other types of actions on the site is what we would try to undertake. So we wouldn't look at particular proposals. We would just generally try to get an assessment of what could happen.
Okay.
Councilor Meadows.
How you doing?
I'm great.
From what you know now, what is the cost of the town to be to rehab this property? What's the cost of a seawall? What's the cost of a pier?
Yeah, so we don't have that information now as a result of we need to do due diligence on what the existing condition is. So we would need to complete this study to be able to provide hard data on that to the council. For instance, though, we did have an evaluation recently done of potential replacement to the Bismore Park bulkhead, which is much larger than this site, but that was about $10 million order of magnitude to replace that bulkhead, and we've opted to rehab it in the interim, but the cost to replace waterfront infrastructure is generally not small.
Yeah, what is the asking price of the property?
It's beyond technical, so I'll defer to somebody else.
I don't believe that there's a solid asking price at this point. We did an appraisal, and as you know, we had a couple of executive sessions where we discussed the appraised value. No offers have been made at all at this point.
Well, I think it's important that we know what the prospective cost is of the property, because we're going to have to put money into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So clearly, that was discussed. I think Attorney LaRosa sent some information on the appraised that's typically a confidential number, that if the town council does direct staff to go and negotiate a deal, you would be giving us the direction of what potential range that we would negotiate said deal. And then in the future, if that deal were to come to fruition, it would have to come back here, have the two reads and public hearing to see if the town actually wanted to purchase the property. So this particular item that we're talking about this evening, Councilor, is not whether we're going to proceed with the acquisition. This is in response to the direction we were given to go conduct further due diligence.
Well, I think, my opinion is that it's a little premature if we don't have a baseline price.
No, it's the other way around.
Councilor Penn, you're out of order.
It's $160,000 to the town isn't a lot of money, but it's a lot of money.
Understood.
And taxpayers deserve to know what we're prospectively going to pay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so prospective, they have a right to know what we're going to pay. You know?
Again, so
Carl,
all I can say is that
if I may, this is the public hearing. When we close the public hearing, we'll have more of a council discussion, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to chime in? Mr. Carroll?
Thank you, town councilors. Before my clock
starts running, I just want to also, Matt did a nice job acknowledging folks on Mr. Ellis's presentation who had served in the police department, but also you, President Tamish, served a long time as deputy chief of Barnstable also, so thank you very much. I have this timed, so we're going to, I'm just going to read quick for a change. First of all, I understand the question about values and that, but I really truly believe that that property is priceless, considering the, hopefully in the future, the hundreds of years of enjoyment that our next town folks get out of it. So this, in my opinion, is an ever-changing landscape of real estate development. The opportunity to require such a prime harborfront land come few and far between. This parcel represents the final piece of a waterfront that has been long a cornerstone of Cape Cod's identity, culture, and history. By purchasing this land, the town of Barnstable ensures that this valuable resource remains in the hands of the people, preserving the waterfront for future generations and preventing it from being sold to private developers who may prioritize commercial interests over the community well-being. As Mr. Kuffner indicated, it's 0.56 of an acre. When you combine that with the existing town property, you'll have almost 3/4 of an acre of deep water ocean access property, which has well-established historic setbacks and a lot of uses already. The acquisition of this parcel would allow the town to enhance its waterfront appeal by improving public access, expanding recreational opportunities, and even developing infrastructure that attracts more visitors to the area. With the proper planning, the land could be transformed into a civic space, such as a waterfront park or a cultural center, boosting tourism and driving new revenue streams for local business. Public access and community well-being. The Hyannis waterfront has always been a community asset, with public access playing a central role in its value. Allowing the town to purchase this land means creating an accessible, inclusive space where residents and visitors can enjoy outdoor recreation, community events, unimpeded views of the harbor, whether it's for a quiet walk along the waterfront or a gathering spot for local events, or simply enjoying the beauty of Hyannis Harbor. This land can serve as a shared space that enhances the quality of life for all. Additionally, this acquisition would guarantee that the town can protect its waterfront from potential overdevelopment that could limit access to the water and create barriers to our enjoyment. In an age where natural spaces are at a premium, maintaining public access to waterfront areas is more important than ever, and as I mentioned before, priceless. In conclusion, a purchase of this caliber sends a clear message about the town's dedication to preserving its history and community well-being. It's a bold step that demonstrates foresight and long-term vision into Barnstable's future. Securing this final harborfront parcel would be a reflection of the town's commitment to fostering a strong sense of place, pride, and unity. It creates an anchor for community activities, celebrations, and ongoing waterfront engagement, while also ensuring that Barnstable remains a top seaside destination for both residents and tourists alike. The opportunity to purchase the last available harborfront parcel along Hyannis Harbor is not just an investment in land, it is an investment in Barnstable's future. The town has a very rare chance to preserve its cherished maritime heritage, improve its economic outcomes through tourism and local business support, enhance public access to the waterfront, and safeguard the environment. For all of these reasons and more, the town of Barnstable should prioritize the acquisition of this waterfront land, ensuring that it remains a vibrant, accessible, and sustainable community asset for generations to come. By taking action now, Barnstable can solidify its place as a town that values its seaside history, protects its environment, and builds a promising future in perpetuity for all generations to follow. Thank you all for your incredible time and dedication to the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further? Anyone else from the public who would like to discuss this? Mr. Moran.
I'm Larry Moran from Kentuit. I didn't expect to come up here tonight. I've known the Baxters for a long time. I lived across the street from them for many years. That's not the criteria. From the way I read it, what Jeff was asking about, really dealt with the due diligence seems to be the issue of this particular filing. And in that regard, I know from experience in different projects I've done in my lifetime what constitutes due diligence. But I think due diligence has its own criteria that customarily get listed. This one, I think, has already been addressed, what Jim Kupfer proposed. I think he covered that. So the question is, should this be approved as to the $160,000 for the due diligence? I think what Cliff did clearly opens up the window beyond that. And I think that's part of the due diligence, because when you do due diligence, you should be looking ahead for how can actually this property be used. So I think that the question for you to consider and discuss is, are there any limitations to spending $160 when you may in fact benefit as if that was $50,000? You don't know. But that's the way I look at it, and I hope that it's beneficial, and those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Well, we're going to have council discussion. You can still.
No, I'm not asking for council discussion. It was mentioned earlier we could hear from the Baxters. I'd like to hear from the Baxters if we could.
If they would like to add something, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I go to the Hyannisport post office, and there was one day I came in there, and Mike, the postmaster's been there forever, and he had the life ring from the Marmion back there, and I almost went insane because Dominic had earlier mentioned about putting a ship at the end, and the Marmion always used to come into Hyannisport, and Sarge was in charge of it. It was the Darlington's boat, and it had all the flags flying, and it was magnificent. And then I said, Mike, can I have that life ring? He says, no, the Baxters are taking that life ring. I said, okay, good. And that just shows me a degree of passion. And I'd like to hear why you came to the town, because, money's money, and, Jeff's mentioned that. But I think there's something else at play here, and I think there's a trust factor, and maybe you have taken in some of the comments we've heard today about, the public good of this. So I really, before we deliberate, I want to hear from the Baxters, because there's been a lot of people saying they know the Baxters and know what they're up to, but they're standing in front of us, and I'd like to hear their words. Thank you.
We're the only two Baxters involved. This is my brother, Ben Baxter, the fifth. Sorry. Our great-grandfather bought the property over 100 years ago. It's never been for sale. And as we discussed with Chuck Carey, who has been here, also a guy that grew up in Hyannis, we were just thinking about what the end game for us and for the town, and we want to see the town continue on. And the town owns the parcel right across the street, which used to be actually in our family. That's a different story. But when I was a younger man, I was on the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Association when it first came together, and all everybody talked about was the walkway to the sea and the walkway to the sea. And that was 27 years ago, and then nothing's happened since then. It's basically stopped right by the Maritime Museum. And so thinking about all that stuff and discussing it with Chuck, Ben and I came up with the thought process of maybe the town would like to continue the walkway to the sea and continue on with the fishing boats. Have several old photos from the 20s and 30s, and it was nothing but old fishing boats down there. And that was the business that my great-grandfather started when he acquired the property, was offloading and onloading the fishing boats with ice and unpacking the fish. And I know that it's getting pretty congested over on Ocean Street. It seems to be discombobulated over there. There's not very organized, the parking, the fishing, the people walking around, and there's a dump truck right next to them. So it might ease the congestion of Ocean Street and have another destination in the harbor. If people are walking that way, they could come over towards Pleasant Street and enjoy a nice view. I know the town is not going to get into the restaurant business. It's about the land the riparian rights, the waterfront, and the continuation of the harbor. So the restaurant is our problem, our deal. The town could do better with the land in the future, and that's pretty much what we were thinking, and we ended up here. The last thing I wanted to do was speak in public. That's not my thing, but here we are. So if you have any questions, let it rip.
You want to hear my story?
Absolutely.
Well, actually, Cliff did a lot, most of the talking for us, and it's funny because my grandfather and his brother went to school here, and when the fishing boats would come in, they would let them go from school and unload the boats. And all the other kids were like, well, why do the Baxter boys get to leave? You know, they get to miss class, and, you know, where are they going? Well, they're going to work. So Sam and I have been working, and I was on the police department for 35 years, and it's time to retire. Everything's got a shelf life. So, I mean, I can sit down and talk to you, but like Sam says, I mean, the public speaking, it is close to us. You know, it's been on the property for 100 years. It's been, you know, it's been in our name for 100 years, and anyways, we think it's the right thing to do, and I think that the town could make it a better, you know, a better place for everybody, not just us. So, that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well put. Any further comment?
No, I just thank you for coming up. You know, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but as I say,
We'll give you the ring if something
the
happens.
Marmion ring? Are you serious?
We'll see. We'll talk after.
Oh, my God. No, that's, oh. No, thank you.
Yeah, we'll put
No, put it to there. It's glorious. Obviously, you know the history. It's just glorious.
All right, thank you for your time. Any questions?
I just wanted to say there's a lot of trust associated with this, that the town will, you know, do the right thing. Thank you for thinking of us first. Regardless of what happens, thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for all your hard work, too.
Thank you. Any further public comment online?
For the record, I just want to say there is no public comment online.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Felicia, is this discussion or a question? It's Charlie. Excuse me, Charlie. Councilor Bloom?
Yes. This is in the vein of public comment. At 45 minutes before the meeting began, the councilors got an email from former councilor Greg Milne, who is a avid boater, frequent patron of Baxter's Fish and Chips. I don't know if everybody on the council has seen this email, but I'd like to just, it's a very insightful, informative, and enthusiastic email. And I'll just read the last couple of sentences. Please don't throw this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity away before you have all the pertinent information. In Barnstable, we only spend 66 cents of every public dollar on creating educated, well-informed citizens. So on this item, we're simply seeking all the pertinent information required to make the right informed decision later. So I recommend everybody take a look at that email from Greg Milne. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Councilors Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, motion passes. The public hearing is closed. Council discussion. Vice President Clark?
Thank you very much, President Tamish. I have a question for Assistant Town Manager Clyburn or his staff. By any chance, has your staff had a chance to look at grant opportunities like the Seaport Economic development grant, something like that.
Yes, certainly. Thank you for that. We got your correspondence a couple days ago, and Jim Cuffert may be able to speak to it, and Griffin a little bit more. We have applied and been successful with those grant opportunities in the past, and we will certainly continue to do so. As far as bringing them to bear on this particular item, I don't think that, I mean, we're at the precipice of a vote this evening that we don't have any grants in hand that we could apply to this. But certainly moving forward, depending on where this goes, there's significant grant opportunities, Seaport grant, et cetera. You can look at communities like Plymouth and others where significant funds, and Jim could probably speak more to it, are available. So we always seek out grants and will continue to do so. But as far as to fund the due diligence, we do not have any grant funding in hand. If I may, Councilor Mendez, I was not trying to be cagey about a number. I did confirm the assessed value is on the order of $2.7 million. We would start any type of negotiation with an appraised value, and the appraisal was, as you know, significantly more than that. So if that's helpful to get that out of the box, it would be a significant investment that we're talking about, clearly.
Thank you. All set? Okay. First, Councilor Mendez?
I think that on its face, everybody would love to own this property. But I have a hard time justifying doing due diligence because my constituents ask me one question: how much is it going to cost? So I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think that we have to go back, talk to the Baxters, see what they want for it, and then do the due diligence if the council wants to accept that price. That's what I think. I think that's the prudent move.
Well,
that's just my opinion. Because, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Walkway to the sea, all that stuff, that's all good. But again, we have a $1 billion sewer project. We have a big bill coming from the schools who's going to want increased funding. So it's not like it's the best time to do big projects like this. And we should know what we're getting involved with before we start doing due diligence. So we're going to spend $160,000 for a piece of property we don't know what we're going to pay for to see what we're getting into. Where I think we should know what we're going to pay for the property, make sure council can accept that, the public can accept it, and then do the due diligence. That's my train of thought.
If I might, perhaps Attorney LaRosa could discuss the process, because I think we have to do the due diligence in order to be able to negotiate. And if you could just perhaps explain the process, if the council decided to move forward after doing its due diligence, and I don't think we're putting the cart before the horse.
Tom LaRosa, First Assistant Town Attorney. When we discussed about this, and I recognize where Council Mendez is coming from. The approach we were looking at is to understand what the town might pay for the property, to be armed with the due diligence to know how that might affect, what we might offer for it versus just what the Baxters are putting it on, would propose to sell it to us for. So we'd want to understand the conditions of the property, and whether that would cause the town to seek a lower purchase price, for example.
I mean, that would be part of the negotiations. You'd have to have this information first.
That would be part of the being armed with some information to help us to negotiate a price. But then again, that would be later, a subsequent authorization of the council if we were in fact to be directed to, if the town wanted to acquire the property.
Thank you. Anything further, Jeff?
I understand where you're coming from. But what I'm saying is we have to start somewhere. If we know a roundabout price of what they want, we can use that as a baseline. Then we go in and do the due diligence, and that gives you your negotiating power.
No.
If I might, the thought originally was we get an appraised value. The appraisal is that dollar amount that we would start, and then we get guidance from council on a percentage above or below that appraised value that would put us in the realm. That was brought forth. That appraised value was presented to town council in executive session. The guidance we were given was to go do further due diligence on this project. So from that, we took it as the town council didn't have enough information to go simply on an appraised value because of the complex nature of this. So I understand that $160,000 is a lot of money, and this is a very difficult decision when you talk about the amount of money that you're talking about. But what I will say is, from a strategic acquisition perspective, that due diligence isn't just, that due diligence would help determine what offer and what negotiation would happen if the council tasked us with that. It would also form the basis for the robust public process that needs to occur if the town actually pursues this acquisition. I don't think any of us, I know Councilor Bloom and I went around and around on the vision of it, and to be honest with you, as Mr. Baxter mentioned, it's not about a restaurant. It's acquiring a key parcel, assembling those parcels, and then having a robust public process to determine the long-term vision of what that is. So it is difficult. It's a bit of the chicken and the egg, but I would like to say that that due diligence will inform that process as well. That it would give the information to you as decision makers, is this a road you want to go down or not? So,
Councilor Minnis?
I think it's only fair that we at least release the assessed value to the public.
the assessed value absolutely is in on the order of,
Or the asking price or whatever, because the public deserves to know what we're spending their money on.
yeah, I don't disagree
The
with you.
appraised
So
value, I'm sorry.
yeah,
The appraised value. I think, because
Yeah.
the public deserves to know.
I don't disagree. I'm simply going on the guidance that I was given with executive session and confidentiality. I'm a rules guy. So when the lawyer tells me this is what you can say, that's what I'm sticking to.
I totally understand, and it's not an attack on you or anybody
Understood,
else.
understood.
But like I said, my constituents have asked me, what are we gonna, and like I said, we're in executive session, so I can't say it.
I know. It's
But
it's
that's
a
what
fair
they want to
question.
know.
Yep. Understood. I don't know. Do you have any amplifying information on that? I really don't.
The appraisal is exempt from disclosure under the public records law. If the town wanted to, the town could waive that exemption. Exactly, go there.
Yeah.
We would have to address the, did we finalize the executive session minutes? Okay, yeah, I mean, there would be a process for that, but it would.
I can't hear what's going on.
Okay.
That was my fault. We can't do that unless we go back into executive session. We haven't finalized those minutes yet.
Okay.
Point being, there is an end point where you could do it, but there's a process to get there.
What's that, Council?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not saying I'm against this project, but I have a hard time voting for due diligence when people are asking me how much it is. I have to explain to my constituents why we're spending this $160,000.
Yeah.
That's what I have to explain to them, because the first thing that they ask me is, how much is the property? Everybody knows the value of the property. Everybody can see how great it would be if the town could own it. That's not the point. It's just if the juice is worth the squeeze. That's the point.
Thank you. Councilor Pan.
Yes, thank you. What we have here is a discussion about two different types of styles of negotiating and who likes to do what first. I think the Baxters are being very generous to the town and allowing us to do discovery first before the selling price is bantered about on the table. We should accept and acknowledge their generous position in this at this point in time. The $160,000, yeah, it's a lot of money, but you know what? Of the approximately $3 million that I heard early in tonight's presentation, the $3 million that's available and certified as of last July, this represents approximately a 5% of investment that the town would make to find out if we want to proceed or not, and if we want to even discuss a purchase price. So what we have is just two different styles and two different ways of doing business here, and they're allowing us the luxury, if you will, of doing diligence first to see if we want to take those next steps and to figure out a price. So you can't do diligence necessarily if you already know the price, because then you're just trying to justify it. You should do diligence first so you can figure out what the range of prices would be. It's just a different way of doing it, that's all. So, you know, I think that it's clearly we've heard from people in the public who think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the town needs to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Clark. Vice President Clark.
Thank you very much, President Tamish. This morning, I spoke with Dr. Robert Duncanson, a longtime Marston's Mills resident and former retired Director of Health and Natural Resources for the town of Chatham for 36 years. He is a respected expert in waterfront and water quality issues, having served on many county committees over his long tenure in Chatham, and his operation in Chatham includes working waterfront piers. We discussed the agenda item before the council tonight regarding spending $160,000 for the evaluation of the proposal to purchase this property. Dr. Bob told me that to do a meaningful workup on the property, that the $160,000 sounds reasonable, and especially in light of escalating costs. Dr. Bob also told me that I have his permission to convey his opinion that for the town of Barnstable to acquire such a property would be expensive but doable in the light of funding opportunities for our town being a municipality. This proposal could be supplemented with grants like the Massachusetts Seaport Economic Grant Program, which was created to support economic structures such as what is envisioned for this property, like an offloading pier only available to municipalities. A change in use such as proposed could also benefit from a municipal vulnerability grant, where municipally owned piers would be designed to be weather hardy and would be able to withstand severe weather, including sea level rise, with minimal damage as opposed to the structure that is currently on the property, which is not eligible for state-funded grants. This proposal would transfer the property from private ownership to public and serve our working waterfront, which has historical use and which has shrunk over the years. It would give control to our town on how this property is used and managed in the future, not only for the integrity of Hyannis Harbor, but also for the economic vitality of our town. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk? Excuse me? I'm sorry, Gordon, I didn't see you. Gordon, Councilor
Thank you.
Clark.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to raise my hand. I'm a little taken back by the amount of money that we're asking for this study, when originally, from what I understand, we talked about $35,000. And I'm also having trouble figuring out how much of this are we paying for our own. Is some of this money going to our own staff, or are these all consultants? It sounds like, we don't have divers on staff, but we have people who can look at architectural building evaluations. So can somebody answer that? How are we paying staff to do this work?
Mr. Badun?
I can answer that question, yeah. So the $10,000 that's identified as architectural oversight soft costs would be for the project management by our team. we would be retaining consultants who are experts in these items for the remainder of the tasks.
So can you explain, thank you, Mr. Bowden. So can you explain the second one again, the architectural code evaluation and why you need 50,000? I can barely read this. Is it $50,000?
The architectural code evaluation is $8,000, and it's to evaluate the historic, there's a number of items that would be evaluated, but historical district implications of the existing building, and potential demolition of that or improvements of it or modifications to it would have a historic district implications, and we would have to study that. Review the existing zoning of the building, implications for the continued use, implications for change of use, and determination on potential triggers for code upgrades as a result of being in the floodplain. So we need to understand all these items to understand if the building could be, if part of the desired use of the site was to use the building in some capacity during a planning process, for instance. We would need to understand if that was possible.
Okay, so is that the second? Can I see the list again?
That's the second item, yeah. Yep.
Okay, I can't read the numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's up on the screen here.
I still can't read the numbers.
8,000.
I can go through them again if you'd like. It's architectural
but
building.
That's all right. Okay. The other concern I have is that there's no financial assessment here on how much money we could bring in, what it would cost to fix things up. It seems like just sort of a physical look at the property. So is the financials something that would come later?
Well, as far as the existing infrastructure on the site, as far as the building, these evaluations would talk about potential improvements to the building that were necessary for continued use if that was a desired outcome.
Yeah.
But as far as improvements or future plans for the building, that would need to be a public process that we would then understand that through that process.
Okay, and maybe it's a question for Mr. Kupfer. Is anybody talking to the commercial fishermen in the large boats to figure out what kind of infrastructure they need and what would benefit them in the long run? I mean, what do they need to keep coming to Hyannis?
Yeah, absolutely. Jim Kupfer, Director of Planning and Development. Not in the context of this specific property, but in the context of looking at the harbor overall and its resiliency. We have had a lot of great conversations with the Alliance and their needs. As actually Mr. Baxter pointed out, some congestion that we do find ourselves with on Ocean Street is one of the bigger items, and that they would like some additional opportunities, and there's certainly other needs that they would like to have in the Inner Harbor. So we have had a lot of good dialogue with them, and as Mr. Bowden mentioned, if we were to continue with the pursuit of this property, they would be one of the key stakeholders we would bring in when talking about the future of this site and the harbor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Penn.
I just want to say a lot of these questions are way down the line past the due diligence part. There are numerous opportunities for the town of Barnstable to make money off this property via going forward for commercial fishing, et cetera, et cetera. There are waterway user fees that we could charge. There's all kinds of stuff besides slippage, dockage, whatever. It's way down the line to have a business plan. You guys are asking for a business plan. How do we make money? How do we benefit? What's the bottom line? Yeah, I get all that. It's important, but it's not part of the agenda item tonight. We're just looking at due diligence. So Jim's right. There's going to be a big community outreach. They're absolutely right about Ocean Street. It's crazy. Those 18-wheel ice trucks come in here. It's dangerous as hell with all the people running around getting to Highline, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I witnessed it my entire life since I was a little kid, okay? But that's down the line. So we're just here at this first thing saying, do you want to go out of the gate and see if it's worthy of us? For 5% of the money that we have available, I think it's a worthy cause. That's all. Bye-bye.
Council Vice President Clark.
Thank you very much, President Tamish. I respect our staff's professional evaluation. Question is, I understand these are estimates. If there's leftover money, where does it go?
If there's any money left over, it would go back from the source of the funds, which I believe we cited as the general fund reserves. And just to note, clarification for Councilor Penn, it's not $3 million that it's certified, it's just shy of $31 million.
Thank you for that. Councilor Ledke.
I just wanted to make one comment that might bring this into perspective. We have a lot of discussion about the 160,000. Barnstable County gave us $1.9 million in ARPA funds. I believe I'm accurate on that. And we've had a lot of discussion from both the public comment and others that we have a sewage project in this. We spent $1.9 million of our ARPA money on a sewage pump station. This is $160,000. I think it's fair. I think we give and give and give to the sewer project, and maybe we ought to give a little bit to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Councilors Mendez,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Starr, sorry,
Yes.
Turgelson,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick,
No.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, if we could move on to 20, by the way, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very
Good
much.
job. Moving on, 2025-140. Councilor Crow, would you read that in?
Thank you, President Tamish. This is an item of old business that may be acted upon by a majority vote. It's item number 2025-140. Order confirming the longstanding recreational uses of a portion of Weano Avenue, known as the Weano Avenue Town Landing, and dedicating the town landing to these uses subject to the protections of Article 97 of the amendments to the state constitution.
Second.
Okay.
Good evening, councilors. Tom LaRosa, First Assistant Town Attorney. Weano Avenue is a town public way allowing travel along its entire length. At the southerly end, vehicular travel on the paved roadway turns
Attorney
onto...
LaRosa, excuse me,
okay?
just one second. The agenda didn't say it's a public hearing, but the verbiage does. So this is, so we are in a we need a public hearing?
This is not a public hearing.
Okay, that's why I didn't think it was, but on the rationale, it shows it's a public hearing. Mhm. Yeah, page 11. No, that's what I'm saying. Do we have to open a public hearing? No, see, there's a discrepancy between the title, which does not, and what's the vote required.
So,
There's a
public hearing, so, but on the front of the agenda, it does not say that, so.
So I believe we do need a public hearing?
I don't know why it has referred to a public hearing on it.
The intent was never to have a public hearing.
Correct.
But you should probably state that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's, so,
Yeah, the intent was not to have a public hearing on it. That's an error.
okay. My only question would be, I didn't know if it was posted as a public hearing, and if we have members of the public here that want to discuss it, I would certainly give them that opportunity.
There's no
Okay.
harm if you want to open a public
Okay.
hearing and hold it.
Okay, why don't we do that? Just to, Madam Clerk?
I believe that Councilor Penn has signed off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank-
I will, do we need to open a public hearing? We can just allow the public to speak, correct? We don't need to have a formal public hearing?
Well, if you're going to, I mean,
Why don't I move to? I'll move to.
Okay. We're just going to move to open a public hearing.
Yep.
I move to open a public hearing for this
Second.
agenda.
Okay, moved and seconded. Madam Clerk? I just don't want to throw a monkey wrench into anything, that's all.
Councilors Starr,
Yes.
Yes.
Tamish, Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Okay, we're all set.
Okay, we are in a public hearing. Attorney La Rosa.
take two. Tom LaRosa, First Assistant Town Attorney. Weano Avenue is a town public way allowing travel along its entire length. At its southerly end, vehicular travel on the paved roadway turns onto Seaview Avenue. However, the roadway layout for Weano Avenue extends further, as it has since its creation in the late 1800s, to Nantucket Sound. This portion of the public way between Seaview Avenue and Nantucket Sound has long been used as a town landing and has been referred to as part of a way to water. The involved area contains approximately 10,653 square feet, as shown on a plan that accompanies the agenda item. For generations, this area has been used for recreational purposes and has provided public access to the beach, public tidelands, and Nantucket Sound for recreational boating, swimming, and fishing, and otherwise exercising permissible public trust rights. These uses of the town landing are consistent with those protected under Article 97 of the amendments to the state constitution, referred to in shorthand as Article 97. Residents and others familiar with the town landing and its historic uses may have assumed the area was protected already under Article 97. The legal department was asked whether the town landing is protected already under Article 97, and if not, what steps would be required to provide that protection. Following review, the legal department found that these historic uses are of the type that would qualify protection under Article 97. However, while one could argue that the area might be protected already based on its historic use, we also believe an argument could be made that the town may not have taken the appropriate action to dedicate this area to Article 97 protection in a manner that court opinions would recognize as sufficient. Action by the council would definitively resolve this issue. If the council seeks to confirm the historical use and ensure protection for the town landing under Article 97, the town should take action to do so by dedicating the area for protection under Article 97. Court opinions provide that such actions must indicate, based on the totality of the circumstances, a clear and unequivocal intent to dedicate the area to Article 97 purposes. The town's order, if passed under this item, would be that action. The order would not change the town's property interest in the town landing. Instead, the town would recognize and confirm the long-standing recreational uses of the town landing and dedicate the area to those purposes for protection under Article 97. If the town council passes the order, then any change or use or disposition of the landing, such as an easement, would require approval by a two-thirds roll call vote of each branch of the legislature. There are several ways for a bill to make its way to the legislature, including through a home rule amendment passed by the town council. Regardless how the bill gets to the legislature, again, it would require a two-thirds roll call vote. If the property is the town landing is protected under Article 97, separate from Article 97, any change or use or disposition would be subject to the Public Lands Preservation Act, also referred to by EA as the Open Space Act, and require addressing replacement land and an alternatives analysis. If approved, the legal department would prepare an affidavit for the town manager's signature that would put on the record at the Registry of Deeds so that folks would, there would be a record of this action. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a statement? Seeing no one? Anyone online? Seeing no one? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilors Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Council discussion, Councilor Crowe.
First, Tom, I just want to thank you for your efforts to put this together for us, and it took a lot of work, so I appreciate that. I think this is going to, considering that we've already, there's already Article 97 protections for Dowses Beach, which is right next door. I think this is a logical thing to put forward, and I think it's, at least in my precinct, is a very critical issue that people are 100% behind it. So I thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Any further discussion on my right? Seeing none. On my left, Madam Clerk?
Councilors, Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Burdick.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. And thank you to the members of the public for hanging in with us. Okay. 2025-141, Councilor Mendes, would you please read that in?
Thank you, President Hamish. This is old business, 2025-141. Amending the code of the Town of Barnstable, Part 1, General Ordinance, Chapter 121, licensing to delegate authority to the town manager to act on petitions for grants of locations for gas lines and associated infrastructure. It's referred to a public hearing, roll call majority vote of the full council.
Second.
Thank you. For the record, Madam Clerk, I believe Councilor Burdick has exited the meeting. Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
We'll wrap it up.
Okay. Again, this needs to be a public hearing, apparently. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Where am I? Councilors, Turkelson,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish.
Yes.
It's 9 yes.
Okay, we're now in a public hearing. Is there any members of the public who would like to address this? Seeing no one here. Lynn, no one online? No? I can't believe people don't want to discuss this. Okay. Seeing no one, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Councilors, Bloom,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
It's 9
And I
yes.
would like to recognize First Attorney, Assistant Attorney Tom LaRosa for the rationale.
Thank you. Tom LaRosa, First Assistant Town Attorney. The town manager, supported by the Department of Public Works, routinely issues grants of locations over, on, or under town public ways involving public utility poles, wires, and conduits for the transmission of electricity or intelligence under Chapter 166 of the general laws. The town manager does so under delegated authority from the town council under the charter and Section 126J of the code. Following National Grid's recent inquiry regarding two projects, we realized that the code does not include an explicit delegation of authority for grants of location for gas lines and gas infrastructure projects. Accordingly, at the council's February 6, 2025 meeting, the council delegated the authority to act to the town manager to act on two specific grants of location for two National Grid projects. At that time, we noted that now that this gap in delegated authority had been identified, we plan to return to the council with a proposed amendment to section 121.6J of the code that would delegate authority to the town manager for future requests of grants of locations to address this gap. And here we are. The proposed amendment to section 121.6J of the code would delegate authority to the town manager so that the town manager may efficiently handle these requests, rather than the council, involving gas lines and related infrastructure in the same way the town presently handles these with support from the DPW for grants of locations for electricity, electric lines, and intelligence.
Thank you. Any council discussion on my right? Any council discussion on my left? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Wait, I have a comment.
I'm sorry, Gordon, I didn't see
Question
you.
for Mr. La Rosa. Thank you, President Tamish. So if the gas company comes in and asks for an easement or I guess an easement, can the town say no?
It's a grant of location. The town could say no, and if the town did say no, the utility could appeal to the DPU, Department of Public Utilities at the state level, and it would be within their discretion to issue the grant of location.
Okay. Personally, I would rather keep that ability at the town council level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilors Clark,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Starr,
No.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
That's 8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you. 2025-143. Mr. Clyburn, we had a suggested date we talked about. What was that date on the town rules?
Oh, we had suggested just moving it to the next town council meeting, sir.
To the next meeting.
To the
So that'd be
3rd
April
3rd
3rd?
of April.
Okay. Okay. Could I have a motion to move 2025-143 to the April 3rd town council meeting?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of moving 2025-143 to April 3rd? Madam Clerk?
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Neary, oops, Pen,
Nope.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. 2025-144. Councilor Turkelson, would you read that in, please?
Thank you, President Tamish. This is an item of new business that may be acted upon by a majority vote of item 2025-144, authorization to contract for and expend a supplemental fiscal year 2024 Housing Works Infrastructure Grant in the amount of $298,200 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities as written.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Kupfer?
Good evening, Jim Kupfer, Director of Planning and Development. This evening, I'm here requesting the authorization to contract for and expend a supplemental fiscal year 2024 Housing Works Infrastructure Grant in the amount of $298,200 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. The town of Barnstable has been awarded the supplemental funds in the amount of $298,200 and additional support of wastewater infrastructure improvements, including a sewer pump station within our downtown Hyannis Growth Incentive Zone. The town of Barnstable requested and received this supplemental grant to cover the rising costs of the project. The award increases our previous grant award of $1,379,840 from September of 2023 to a total grant award of $1,678,040. The contract end date is June 30th, 2027. No matching funds are required. I do want to highlight that this is a team effort. DPW is really taking the lead on this, and there's two specific individuals that identified this rising cost and sought out additional funding, and that's Miro Jakubica and Mike Tu. Both of those have been outstanding leaders for this project, and I just want to give them special thanks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comment on my right? Discussion on my right? Any discussion on my left? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselors, Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
It passes.
Thank you. Councilman Levesque, could you do 2025-145, please?
Thank you, President Tamish. This is new business may be acted upon majority vote. Item number 2025-145, authorization to contract for and expend a fiscal year 2025 land conservation assistance grant in the amount of $20,000 from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to update the town's open space and recreation plan as written.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer.
Good evening, Jim Cuthbert, Director of Planning and Development. Again, tonight I'm here to request authorization to contract for and expend a fiscal year 2025 land conservation assistance grant in the amount of $20,000 from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to update the town's open space plan. The town of Barnstable was awarded this grant to contract with a consultant to update the open space and recreation plan. These funds will be used to offset the portion of the $50,000 of Community Preservation Act grant funds that was previously allocated for the same initiative. The grant is 100% reimbursable, and the budget for $20,000, and there's no matching funds that are required.
Thank you. Any discussion on my right? Any discussion on my left? Councilor Mendes? No? Oh, I
No
see-
discussion.
I
Get ready to vote yes.
I saw you reaching for your microphone.
Oh,
I was wondering.
I'm anxious.
Madam Clerk?
Move to adjourn. Counselors, Ludke,
Yes.
Mendes.
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Yes.
Levesque, I'm sorry, Crow.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Guys are getting ahead of me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt, it passes.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
You sure do.
Do I have moved and seconded? Madam Clerk?
Counselors, Mendes,
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
Starr, Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Ludke.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all and good night.